Hey guys, this is Frank Decker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is the Ultimate Fighter 17 winner, Kelvin Gastelum. UFC light heavyweight Ryan Bader.
Hi, this is Hector Lombard.
Tyron, the chosen one, Woodley.
Hey guys, this is Chad Mendes.
Jake Ellenberger.
I'm Hoist Gracie, Pete Ortiz, the People's Champ.
What's up, my fans?
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio. Let's do this shit!
Welcome to another episode of Submission Radio. Wild weekend at MMA World Series of Fighting 22 and, of course, UFC 190. It's a pleasure to be here. Dennis Crowder here with Kasper Rosalowski. Cass, I feel like I'm saying this almost all the time, but another great week when it comes to MMA for the world of MMA.
Man, I love doing these double-doubles. There's a lot to talk about. UFC 190, oh my god, the Iron Man of pay-per-view events. Did you guys listening, did you make it? Did you make it through the pay-per-view? I feel like there should be t-shirts like I survived the UFC 190 60-hour pay-per-view. We're all here now, we're all listening, but there's actually other interesting stuff to talk about as well. World Series of Fighting 22 controversy struck not only in the main event, but also there was a brawl. The Diaz brothers were involved, or should we say Nate Diaz, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Controversy everywhere. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, isn't there, Dennis?
Absolutely, Cass. And we've got Jake Shields joining us on the program today. A lot to talk to him about, obviously, a lot of the controversies. And obviously, guys, we have a big lineup for you when it comes to the guests. We have none other than Mike Winkeljohn, a guy who's coached one of the best fighters in the world, John Jones, Andre Arlovsky, John Dodson, Cowboy Cerrone, the list goes on. He's going to be popping on the program, talking about all of his students, a lot to talk to him about. Then we have Alex Astrogirl Chambers. She's an Australian fighter in the UFC. She's got a really big fight coming up with Paige Van Zandt at UFC 191. Me and Kasper are going to break it down with her, have a chat with her, get to know the girl who could be the next big thing in the women's division. Don't put it past her. And we have none other than UFC Bantamweight champion. How about this, Cass? UFC Bantamweight champion TJ Dillashaw comes on Submission Radio to talk about his stellar performance against Renan Barao. Dominick Cruz talking a lot of smack. There's Conor McGregor. What's going to happen there? How's Chad Mendes doing? What happened in that fight? We are going to talk to TJ about all of the above. Really lucky to have such great guests on this program.
It's a juicy show. It's finger-licking good, guys. We hope you enjoy it. We're super excited. We're going to cut to our first guest in just a moment. Before we do, of course, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SubmissionAUS. We love chatting to all the people out there, all the MMA fans, all the listeners of the show. In case you didn't know, in case you're watching on YouTube, of course, the show's available on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, pretty much everywhere where podcasts can be found. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to drop some comments below. Let us know what you think in regards to a whole bunch of things. Do you think there's anybody left for Ronda Rousey other than a cyborg fight? And also let us know about the World Series of Fighting 22 Jake Shields fight. Do you think the Kimura was on too long? What do you think should happen with Husma Palhares? There's plenty of stuff to talk about. I believe our first guest, just to let you know, the order of the guests will be Coach Wink. We'll be speaking to him in just a moment. Then we will have Alex Chambers, then TJ Dillashaw, and then right around the end of the episode is when Jake Shields will be available. He's just in hospital at the moment, getting cleared, so then we'll be having Jake Shields for a very brief moment. It's going to be a very quick chat with TJ Dillashaw, by the way, because we haven't a lot of time. 10 minutes is the go, so that's how long we have with the champ.
Certainly right, Cass. A super packed show and excited to get right into it. And we have our first guest on the line ready to speak right now.
All right, guys. Our next guest is one of the best MMA coaches in the world, coaching guys like Carlos Condit, Cowboy Cerrone, John Jones, Tim Kennedy, Andre Arlovsky, and John Dodson, and so many more. It's a pleasure to welcome Mike Winkeljohn back to the program. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Well, it's our pleasure now. Mike, there's exciting times ahead for the camp. Even though nothing's been 100% confirmed, all signs are pointing to Carlos Condit having the next title shot with Robbie Lawler. You must be pretty excited.
I love the matchup. Yeah, dang right I'm excited about it. I've wanted that matchup for quite a while. I think it's made for a great battle for the fans, but it's also made for Carlos Condit to, of course, win the title.
Yeah, should be a stand-up contest. We spoke a little bit about it last time you were on the show. Tell us, how close is the fight to being locked in from what you know?
I've heard talk about it. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I don't think contract's been signed, so I don't know any more than you do. But I think now that it's out there and people are giving a good response to it, I can't see them not having and not going forward with it. So I think it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Robbie Lawler had arguably one of the most exciting title defenses in welterweight history against Rory McDonald. Just wondering, Coach, what did you think of the performance from both men, and did it play out the way that you thought it would?
You know what? I honestly thought Rory might pull that fight off. I was real surprised he stepped back in the pocket a little bit with Robbie and got caught as he did. Incredible fight. I think both men deserve probably a lot more money than made because there's a little bit of brain damage going on there. But it was a great, exciting fight, and I think just tremendous skill on both guys' sides.
Of course. Johnny Hendricks is ranked higher than Carlos, but it seems like fans really want Carlos versus Robbie because, it's the more exciting fight. Do you think there's much point to the UFC's rankings if most of the time they don't really indicate who fights for the title next?
Well, they're also looking at who's fought each other. So, it's all about the new matchup type of situation. So it's a little bit about the rankings, but it's also about, making the right matches, the exciting fights and the fights that fans haven't seen.
Now, when fans have been asking us on social media how we think Carlos will do against Robbie, given that he got hit a lot in the first round against Thiago Alves, last time we had you on the show, you explained how that was not the plan and how by the second round Carlos had adjusted. Do you think that because Carlos has already had his return fight from injury, he'd get into gear a lot quicker against Robbie?
Oh, yeah, well, we have to. There's no doubt we got to start faster. A lot of that had to do with the layoff, I'm sure. A lot of it had to do with being in a different country. A lot of it had to do with, many different things. But once he did shift gears there, it became one-sided. And against, Robbie, we want to make sure it's one-sided the whole fight.
With just still in regards to Robbie versus Carlos Condit, I think a lot of people were picking that against Rory McDonald, that fight might go all the way. If assuming Carlos and Robbie gets made, what do you think? Do you think it'll be a decision fight? Do you think there's very little chance that fight would go to the end?
I think there's a little chance to go to the end. If it goes to the end, there's no doubt Carlos will win because Carlos is a 5-round fighter. His conditioning is just incredible. But now, both of those guys do damage. Robbie hits very hard. I'm surprised. I would be very surprised anybody, going the distance with Robbie Lawler with his striking power. And you can see what Carlos can do now with Thiago Alves. He's always been a finisher. He always finishes fights. And there's, in my mind, there's no doubt that it'll be finished before the 5th round.
I mean, Coach, recently Robbie has really shown people that his striking is just so dominant. He's so powerful. Just wondering, from the perspective of getting Carlos ready for this fight, what areas of Robbie's game do you see that you can exploit in the striking? How can someone survive standing with a guy like Robbie Lawler at this point in his career?
Well, the way to survive against Robbie Lawler is not get hit because he hits very hard. Is not be there. As simple as that. Beat it a punch and not be there. I think that Roy was being very successful at fighting at a proper range, and then he got sucked into the fight. And so that's part of it is Carlos has got to fight his fight, whatever that may be. I won't give up the game plan, but Robbie's going to try to suck him into his fight, which is, throw with me because I hit hard.
Now, another man from the gym vying for the title is Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Seems like him and Rafael Dos Anjos will be the next fight to make. However, there's been a lot of radio silence when it comes to when the fight happens. Do you think there's any chance Cowboy takes another fight if this thing gets dragged out any longer?
You know what, Cowboy, he always wants to fight. He doesn't really care about the title. He just wants to fight. He wants to make some money, buy more toys. He doesn't ever turn down fights. Holding him back is the hard part. Greg, Cowboy doesn't listen to me. He listens to Greg Jackson, and Greg's always telling him, slow down. And Cowboy's like, I want to take the fight. But it's worked out well for him. He just keeps destroying people. He's on a run. He's doing great things. And if the fight was to go around till stretch out real far away, there's no doubt in my mind Cowboy would take another fight.
Just wondering, Coach, what would you prefer? I know Greg probably prefers that he does take the title shot, but if this thing does get dragged out, we know you're a big fan of guys getting in there and having fights, and Cowboy's done really well because he's fought really frequently. Would you want him to have another fight in between the title shot if it does get dragged out for another 6, 7, 8 months?
Gosh, 8 months, that's a tough one. It's a tough one. It's I want to be on Cowboy's side and how he wants to live his dream, and something tells me he'd want to fight. I can't turn him down on that if it was going to get drug out really far. But if it's within the next 6 months, I'm with Greg. I think he sits on it, and he becomes the best in the world. He deserves it. He's there, And, there's nothing wrong with us having another champion in our camp.
Yeah, that's true. Hopefully that fight gets made and, possibly in Melbourne, UFC 193. Now, Donald's made a few remarks about Rafael dos Anjos possibly using PEDs, and other fighters have as well. Is this something that he's spoken to you about? I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on the allegations?
No, he's never spoken to me about it before. There's no doubt there's a lot of guys out there that things are going to change with testing, and we'll see. We'll see. You'll know right away when you start looking at people's bodies if they change. So I don't know. He hasn't spoken to me about it, and I can't say either way. But the way to find out is you'll see if bodies change when they start doing more testing.
Yeah, certainly. And obviously he provided some photos of RDA's body changing at some point in his career. Now, just wondering about the rematch, Coach, between Cerrone and Rafael dos Anjos. How do you see the fight playing out? Do you think Cowboy has adjusted enough to fix the errors in his skill set from the last fight that they had?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about it. I'm going to tell you what, Cowboy Cerrone's wrestling has come to such a high level. He's got the best hips in the gym. It's incredible what Jafari, his wrestling coach, has done with him. I'm constantly amazed at how technical he's gotten and how fast he can shift his weight and bring his hips around to keep people from taking him down. He's a whole different level. And so now that the wrestling's out of the game for everybody else, they got to deal with Cowboy wanting to kick him in the head with his left leg all day long. And everybody sees what happens when Cowboy starts really striking. He can get going. So I think he's made proper improvements. I think you'll see even a better Cowboy for this fight. I know today I already watched him sparring in class. He was already doing some things that from the outside love to see him do more of. And he's got a great striking coach, day-to-day striking coach, Henry Smith, that's definitely just working on these things, and he's getting better and better at it.
Yeah, I think when Cowboy originally fought Rafael dos Anjos, it was during Rafael's rise up the ranks and career resurgence. I think most people didn't really take him as seriously. Do you think Cowboy underestimated Rafael the first time around?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think Cowboy ever underestimates anybody. I've never seen anybody as nervous as Cowboy before a fight. It's crazy, but the fights he gets nervous for, usually the more he gets nervous he gets, the better he performs.
Wow.
But so I don't think he took him light by any means. I think that it's just one of those fights that just didn't go his way, and I think I know you'll see a different Cowboy this time.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Wink, because we've seen Cowboy get nervous in the cage in big fights and not perform up to the level that people think that he can perform up to, most notably the fight with Nate Diaz. Has he been able to tackle any of those issues mentally going into those massive fights? And do you think it will be a different outcome now that he fights for the title if he gets the shot?
Of course he has. I mean, you look, he's on a run. He's undefeated in how many fights now. So he definitely made those adjustments. And every fighter gets nervous for their fight. I don't care who they are. Unless you're psychotic, everybody, it becomes all-consuming. And every fighter across the board gets nervous. Some just show up more than others.
Now, Coach, although it seemed like Andrei Arlovski was going to get the next title shot, looks like he will be fighting Frank Mir at UFC 191. First of all, how disappointed were you and Andre with this fight, which seemingly doesn't really do much for either man?
You know what? It's maybe a little disappointment because, of course, we wanted the title shot. But if we had to wait long term for the title shot, keeping Andre busy is not such a bad thing. I think this will be a good fight for him. And we've had Frank. Frank came down. He's been at our gym quite a bit. He used to train with us a little bit, so we know a lot about Frank. We like Frank. I think he's got some great skills, but this could be a good fight for Andre. And there's no doubt in my mind that they will give him a title shot after he knocks out Frank Mir.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because, like you mentioned, he did train with you guys at Albuquerque. He trimmed down a lot when he trained with you guys and looked like a younger, leaner version of himself. Against Duffy, he looked to have put on quite a bit of weight. What did you think of the bigger Frank Mir?
Well, again, he started swinging for the fences and did great. He's the one that connected with it. But with that being said, Andre's a different animal out there than Duffy that they fought. Andre, accelerates that much faster. I think Andre hits as hard as anybody in the heavyweight division. And boxing Andre Arlovski is tough to do. The man's a genius now, and his movement's gotten so much better, and he's listening. I'm on an Andre roll right now. I think it's a good fight for us.
Obviously, like you mentioned, you used to coach Frank Mir, now you don't. You still coach Andre. Do you think that given the fact you'll be able to put together a pretty solid game plan for Andre to defeat Frank Mir, having trained him before and knowing him quite well and his style?
Well, I think so. I think Frank, we got Frank when he was kind of trying to change some things a little bit, and we maybe started helping that change. But since then, he's actually gone off back into Vegas, and he's working on some things, and his boxing's gotten much better. Like everything, you start working on stuff, and as time goes on, all of a sudden you start seeing it come out, and you've seen him. He's become that much better of a boxer. You know, he's on run with a couple knockouts now, a couple one-punch knockouts. He's always had that power. He's just always been the ground guy, but I've always been impressed with Frank. Not only does he have the boxing hand, people have no idea how good that guy can kick. Frank Mir, for a gigantic man, moves very, very fast and kicks very well, and I know that's in his toolbox, and hopefully he doesn't bring that out too much against Andre Arlovski. But he's got some skills, but we know a little bit about him.
Let me ask you, Coach, a lot of people give Frank a lot of flack, saying that he's a lazy trainer, he doesn't put much time in the gym, and that's the reason why he comes into fights a little bit bigger than usual. You had him over at Albuquerque for quite some time. Can you give us any comments on the fact of how hard he works when it comes to training, especially your experiences with him?
You know, Frank Mir was not a lazy trainer when he was in Albuquerque. He actually trained real hard. Frank's had a lot of injuries. He's got a lot of things that that come up that slow you down, and he's gotten smarter over the years and not overtraining through those injuries. I can tell he was starting to do that with us a little bit, and he must be doing it now because he's got to have the same long-term injuries, but he's coming into fights and doing well. So I think he's become smarter about it and knowing when to pull back, because that's what it's all about. He's got to go into the fight healthy. You can't train so hard that you go into the fight unhealthy.
Sure, makes sense. Now, we want to quickly talk to you about Holly Holm. She looked great in her second fight, but she was harsh on herself for not getting the finish. What was your overall assessment of her performance?
Oh, that's great. You know, she defeated the girl everywhere. You make a girl pull guard twice. You know, that to me, that's demoralizing. That you can't take somebody down because of your movement, because of the range, because they're scared to get to you. And again, she got started to put the same arm bar that she was triangle that Jessica Andrade got caught in, and right away she was able to defend it and pop out. So, you know, everything's coming together. She's showing about how strong she is, and she's not a boxer anymore. She's an MMA fighter.
Yeah, and she's very, very calculated and measured in the octagon. Just wondering, Wink, is that something that's a part of Holly's nature, or is that a part of the game plan that you and Coach Jackson worked on it with?
Oh, that's both. Actually, probably more game plan than her nature. If we had let her go with the reins, she would just go. But it's all about part of the plan, and our thing with her, as a lot of fighters, is hit, not get hit, and that's real important to us. Again, it's the fans like see people just swinging and throwing down until somebody goes down, but we'd rather hit them and not get hit.
She's very good at avoiding damage. After the fight, Holly mentioned that she feels like she showed a little bit more of herself, but she seemed like she wanted to show a bit more. I'm just wondering, is this the real Holly Holm that we're seeing, or is there someone else that you're seeing in training? Because we get the feeling from Holly that there's more to her than what we've seen in her last two fights. She always kind of, in her post-fight interview, she always seems a bit harsh on herself, a bit disappointed.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot more there. There's no doubt about it. We haven't shown the world it because it's all going to be a surprise when we get the bigger fights. But there's more Holly there. There's no doubt about it.
Well, Ronda Rousey is running out of contenders with a third fight with Miesha Tate looking like it's going to be set. If things go to plan, do you predict Holly might be Ronda Rousey's opponent following Tate, or do you think that might still be a bit too soon for Holly?
I think it's a very good chance she might be the opponent after Tate.
All right, interesting. Now, switching topics, John Dodson will be getting another shot at Demetrius Johnson. John's obviously had some issues with Demetrius in their first fight. What's the big focus in training leading into the rematch, and how do you tackle what arguably is, one of the pound-for-pound best in the UFC?
Gosh, Demetrius is great. What the excitement about that fight is it's the two fastest men in the world that fight each other. It's incredible how fast those two guys are. Angle changes, put on punches, able to shoot it anywhere. Little John can wrestle. There's no doubt about it. We know he hits harder than anybody in the division. I'm guessing Demetrius does not want to get hit hard by Lil Jon again because Lil Jon dropped him 3 times in their first fight. But that's our goal, is to hit him really hard and avoid damage that Demetrius does. you're talking about a much more mature John Dodson with a little bit better game time and improved. Not that Demetrius has not improved, he's improved. And it's going to be great. It's going to be a great fight for everybody, and definitely great for John Dodson.
It's interesting that you mentioned, John. Obviously, he's come back quite recently from injury. In his comeback fight, some fans were critical about his performance. Do you put that down to ring rust and him being out with injury for so long? Why his performance was a little bit underwhelming for fans to watch?
Oh yeah, a little ring rust, but also he was friends with Zach. You know, they had training partners and stuff. So John Dodson, if he doesn't like you or he wants to win the fight, he'll destroy you. But if he likes you, he's the nicest guy in the world. And so there's a little bit of that going on, I believe, in the fight, believe it or not. And Demetrius, though, he's wanted this fight. He's wanted this rematch for a long time. So there's no excuses there. He'll be pulling the trigger all night long.
Yeah, well, on that point, I was going to ask you. I mean, he's made some comments in the media how he wants to destroy Demetrius Johnson. Would you say there's some animosity from John towards Demetrius with this fight? Is this a fight that he feels emotional about?
Oh, I don't think there's any animosity toward Demetrius himself personally. I think they're both warriors that respect each other. I think John's mad himself for losing that first fight. He's very competitive, and he had him hurt. He had knocked him down 3 times in the fight, and he ran out of gas. And so he became he didn't win the title, and so he's more mad at himself than anything. And now he's just retooling and going to go get it this time.
Well, we're excited for the rematch. Before we let you go, Mike, we have to ask, what's the latest update on Jon Jones? How's he going in the gym, and are we any closer to seeing him possibly come back in the octagon?
You know what? I have no idea about him coming back to octagon yet. He's kind of still working on himself. I know he's got some court things that have got to get worked out. He's been in the gym helping other people, and that's been real important. Just kind of coming in, helping other people, and change the way he looks at things a little bit. And we've been real happy with that progress, that paying attention to others that he's been doing so far.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people in the team look like they'll be getting eventual title shots. Is that something that John uses to take his mind of everything that's going on, being able to help his teammates in possibly the most important parts of their career, and being somewhere where he's already been, being able to give them advice, not only just physical advice, but mental advice as well?
Oh, yeah, that's real important. He's becoming more and more about the team. In fact, the whole team is doing that. They're kind of feeling the energy that's going on right now. We got with Carlos, getting a title shot, and John Dodson getting a title shot, Cowboy getting a title shot. We all know Jon Jones, when he comes back, is going to be the champ again. Man, that's 4. That's half. That's half the 8 division. So, we'll get Holly around the corner. So the team's real happy right now. They got the best training partners in the world at the gym, and it's going well.
Now, people have been discussing a Jon Jones versus Fedor super fight for quite some time. We actually had Bas Rutten chime in on it last week as well, and that's obviously if Fedor signs with the UFC, and that's if Jon Jones comes back, so it's pretty much fantasy at this point. We all know the UFC loves super fights, but just curious, how would you see the fight going? Do you think Jon Jones would have the tools to possibly beat the last Emperor?
Oh, I haven't not even spoke to John about it, but looking at how, Fedor's fights toward the end of his career, I think unless he changed something, I think it's an easy fight for John.
And let me ask you, Wink, because obviously Fedor means a lot to the people in the MMA community. What are your thoughts about him making a comeback to MMA? Do you think it's a smart idea for him at 38 years old to have another run at possibly the UFC, which could be his toughest batch of opponents in quite some time?
You know what? I think it's a great idea, honestly, with the right training. Look at Andre Arlovski coming back. I mean, everybody thought he was shelved. And now he's coming back and on a title run. There's no doubt about it. And I think if we get the title shot, we'll win the title. It's just if he does it right, if he's thinking about doing it right, and how cool is that? That's another one of those really, really exciting stories. Fedor was the king for so long, and to take all that time off and come back, that would be really exciting.
Oh, certainly. And let me ask you, just on that Arlovski fight, if the two do end up fighting each other again, how do you think the fight would play out differently the second time? Now that you know how much Arlovski's improved in the last, number of years.
Well, what people understand is Andre's so strong. He's so strong from Sambo days, and he's so tight, and strong in his body locks. Strength-wise, Andre would be so much stronger. And as far as the boxing skills with the range, Andre's got him there too. So, I definitely would put my money on Andre all night long, and actually would enjoy seeing that fight.
All right, guys. Well, look, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, Coach Wink. You can catch Coach Wink on Twitter at MMA Coach Wink, and make sure you go to jacksonsmartialartsandfitness.com to find out how you can travel and train at one of the world's greatest MMA gyms in the world. You can, of course, go there and sleep there. You've got dorms there now. Coach, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Hey, let me tell you guys, it's jacksonwink.com. So that's our website, jacksonwink.com, and go there and check it out and see what we have.
jacksonwink.com. Awesome. Again, thanks so much for your time today, Coach. Always a pleasure having you on the show.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Demetrius Johnson, the UFC flyweight champion of the world, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
You may recognize our next guest from Tough 20, coming off a spectacular come-from-behind victory at UFC Adelaide. She's facing Paige Van Zandt at UFC 191. Alex Astrogirl Chambers, welcome to Submission Radio. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it's our pleasure. It's great to chat to you, Alex. Now, before we get into it, we have to ask you about the Astro Girl nickname. For those who don't know, how did it come about? How much relation does it have to the Astro Boy cartoons?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of relation to the Astro Boy cartoon. I guess there's two meanings to it. I studied astrophysics or physics degree at university, and part of my major was astrophysics, hence the Astro Girl. And also, I guess the second part of the meaning of Astro Girl is, as you mentioned, the link to Astro Boy being, well, Astro Boy used to overcome, much larger enemies. And I guess I've always been the smaller fighter in most of my fights.
Mm. Well, that's exactly right. I mean, let's talk about your big win at UFC Adelaide against Kylan Curran, the come-from-behind win. It's been a number of months since that fight. Have you had a chance to watch it back, and what are your overall thoughts of that fight now that the dust has settled?
Yeah, it took me a little while to watch the footage back. I wasn't too happy with my performance. Things didn't go as planned. I didn't feel as great as I had planned to. But obviously it's how you finish that counts, and I'm definitely happy with how I finished that fight.
No, sorry, continue on. I mean, I was going to say, yeah, absolutely.
Well, so I watched the footage, and I mean, I guess I definitely learned a lot about myself in that fight, and when most of my fights have ended in the first round, so to go 3 rounds and be able to push through even when I wasn't feeling great, and even when there were times when I was in trouble, you definitely do learn a lot about yourself. And I'm grateful with the way the fight went, and I'm definitely taking those lessons into my training now for my next fight.
Yeah, certainly. Now, Alex, you told me and Casper right after the fight during our post-fight interview how your coach told you that if you don't go out there and find a way to win in the 3rd round, you're out of the UFC. I'm just wondering, how much of an effect did that have on you mentally going into that 3rd round? Did it give you a sudden rush of energy and put you into the right place mentally, to be able to get a finish like that?
It definitely scared me a little bit. And I'm grateful to have been fighting, in front of a home crowd, and they definitely helped lift me in the fight at the times that I, was in trouble and wasn't feeling great. And I knew when I latched on that Kimura, that was my chance. That I was going to finish it. I knew how important it was to, really finish it there. So, that was my opportunity, and I'm glad it worked out the way it did.
Now, when you realized you had Curran and she tapped, you must have had an unbelievable feeling. How long did the win take to set in? Or what did your coach say to you after you went out and got the win in the 3rd, like he asked you to?
Yeah, I guess there was a little bit of disbelief initially, that she tapped, and it took a while to sink in. The whole experience of it, getting my hand raised walking out, talking to some of the fans after the fight, you know, doing the interviews, you know, it starts to sink in, you know, as the adrenaline wears off, and I mean, that's why people love MMA, you know, that you're able to come from behind and pull off a win. You know, it's what makes the sport so exciting.
Oh, yeah, and one of the most exciting finishes of the night by far. Now, we were sure that you'd be on the UFC 193 card in Melbourne. We were very surprised when we saw you being put on UFC 191 instead. Just wondering, were you surprised at all about the card placement and also being matched up with Paige Van Zandt?
I mean, I guess I was a little bit surprised, only because, you know, I was overseas in the US on holidays, taking a bit of a break after the fight, and that's when I got the news of, you know, being offered the fight against Paige. And so, you know, I realized what an opportunity it was, and so it was a bit of a surprise, only because I was kind of in holiday mode, but still training, you know, I'm lucky enough to be able to train an American top team in the US. And so, you know, it's always great training in other gyms and learning new things. And so I guess that was the surprise, just that I was in a bit of a holiday mode. But, you know, I was, you know, excited at what a great opportunity, you know, what a great fight it is. The UFC, you know, Sean Shelby always, you know, puts on such good matchups, and you know, I really believe this is a good matchup, and I'm excited for the fight.
Yeah, and a holiday up in Florida, there's nothing wrong with that. We'll chat about ATT a little bit later. Paige is without a doubt a big star, even though she's only 21. She's only had a few fights. How do you rate her as a fighter? Have you been impressed with her thus far?
Yeah, I mean, she is an exciting fighter, and hence, you know, why she's become, you know, quite popular. And I like fighting people who can bring out the best in me, and I think this is a great matchup, a great fight for us, and to be put on such a good card as well. You know, as strawweights, you know, featured in this UFC 191 in Las Vegas, strawweights being the newest division in the UFC, it's great to have this fight on that card. So I'm really excited. Yeah.
Now, her performance against Felice Herrig was outstanding. When watching back some of her fights, what are a couple of areas you think she does well, and a couple of areas that you think you can exploit going into this fight with her?
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely improving with every fight, and I believe I am too. You know, she's relentless, and she's tough. She's had some really good fights, and I'm not sure I want to share with you my game plan right now before the fight.
Yeah. Can't let the cat out of the bag.
But you know, honestly, the only way I want it to go is me having my hand raised and walking out of the cage with a huge smile on my face. And I'm preparing for everything, and the coaches here at ATT, you know, are preparing me for everything, and that's really the only way I have it in my head right now.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is an interesting matchup. There's a few dynamics here. You know, Paige is currently ranked number 8 in the UFC strawweight division, and thus far you're unranked. Many expected that she'd be getting a ranked opponent. Do you feel like, because it seems like the UFC trying to build her up, do you feel like you're being put out there as a bit of a sacrificial lamb, and that the win over Paige, you know, this is a win that could really throw you in the spotlight and in the title hunt?
I don't really see myself thrown in there as a sacrificial lamb. I think, you know, the UFC knows this is going to be an exciting matchup, and that's why they've put it on. And yeah, I think the strawweight division is, you know, really quite dynamic at the moment. You know, so many changes are happening in the rankings every fight. We're seeing so many changes that you know, everyone in the division is a very good fighter. So whether you're ranked or not ranked, you know, you got to take everyone seriously. You know, there's girls in this with, you know, everyone's really skilled in this division, and that's what makes it, you know, so exciting. That's what makes strawweight fights really exciting. So, you know, I guess a win over Paige, you know, I don't know. Like I said, the rankings are just always changing at the moment. I'm not really focused on that what it'll do. You know, I'm just really focused on September 5th and training really hard for it. And yeah, I want to see at the end of the fight.
Oh, certainly right. And if anything goes to show, the rankings don't really mean much, especially now in the landscape of MMA. Now, you're just over a month away from the fight. Just wanted to find out, how's your training camp going so far? And who have you been working on in your preparation for this fight?
Yeah, it's going great. As I mentioned earlier, you know, I was on holiday here, and I had the opportunity to train at American Top Team. You know, they really welcome me with, you know, open arms to come and train with them, even though they, you know, have, I think, you know, 4 other girls in the UFC just in the strawweight division. So, I mean, I've definitely got some great training partners for this fight, and some really great coaches, and I couldn't be happier with how things are going.
Now, even though the level of training in Australia is catching up to the States, the general consensus is that there's a lot more experienced partners in America, and usually the training is of a higher level. What is it like training at one of the most recognized MMA gyms in the world? You know, how does it compare to your training when you did train in Australia?
I guess the difference you could say is just that, you know, it is, you know, one of the big and well-known MMA gyms in the world, and therefore there are a lot of training partners, and I'd say that's the difference. You know, back home, obviously, there's not going to be as many training partners, but there are always a way around things like that. You know, in Australia, jiu-jitsu the level of jiu-jitsu is getting better. The level of striking's always been good and getting better. And because of that, you know, you do have some good training partners for your MMA. Just the you know, here at American Top Team, kind of everything is all there. You know, you've got your wrestling, your boxing, everything in the gym, everything you need. And like I said, the training partners and some really experienced coaches. It's great, you know. I'm always learning new things every day.
Oh, I bet. Now, one of the girls over at American Top Team is, of course, Tecia Torres. She's actually had some success against Paige Van Zandt, actually being the only girl to beat her. Just wondering, have you had a chance to have a chat with her about Paige and sort of game plan with her, find out a bit more about her, seeing as she's the only one who's been able to be successful against her?
You know, I've had some training sessions with Tecia. I haven't talked to her specifically about, you know, the Paige fight, but, you know, I'm working with some of her coaches that, you know, worked with her for that fight. So, you know, I'm there, you know, obviously preparing me really well for the fight. And, you know, I'm preparing for everything. As I said, you know, it's MMA. You don't know what's going to happen. And, you know, it's about being as well prepared as possible in every area.
Now, you mentioned to us when you spoke to us post-fight in Adelaide that you felt very flat going into your fight, which is partly one of the reasons why it took you so long to kick into gear. How will you be looking to avoid that going into UFC 191?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I was dehydrated a bit for that fight, and, you know, I hadn't been eating as well during the week, and I definitely think that was a major contributor to why I felt so flat. You know, obviously I don't know 100% what the reason was, and you know, I'm just going to focus on everything that is in my control in the lead up during fight week, and that, you know, will be to make sure, you know, my nutrition, I'm getting the right nutrition, and obviously, you know, I'm staying hydrated and hydrating properly after the weigh-ins and things like that.
Yeah, certainly. Now, you always said that the title is your goal. At 36 years old and a huge fight coming up, do you see this as your year to potentially make a run and get a title shot against Joanna, potentially near the end of the year if you get a win against Paige?
You know, we'll see what happens. At the moment, you know, I'm taking it one fight at a time. And as I said, you know, as I've said, you know, a few times, the strawweight division is such a dynamic division. You know, the rankings are always changing, and potentially, you know, there could be opportunities, you know, if I win this next fight, who knows what could happen. for the fight after that. But right now, it's hard for me to, look past September 5th. That's my focus. And I'm doing everything I can to be as prepared, to win that fight, to get my hand raised at the end of the fight. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens after September 5th.
It's going to be an exciting day, September 5th. And, of course, for all the Aussies, it's going to be September 6th because we're in the future. And, of course, the time difference. Yeah. Now, Alex, we're going to round out the interview with something that we do with all our guests. It's called the Submission Radio Tap Out Round. We fire off a bunch of fun questions at you and you answer with the first thing that comes to your mind. Kind of like word association. This is the real sort of getting to know you round. So if you're ready, I'll go with the first question.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, you got a bonus at UFC Adelaide. Tell us, what did you spend the money on?
A holiday in the US.
Hey, we would have gone for a barrel of tacos, just letting you know.
What's your favorite country to fight in apart from Australia?
The US, of course.
Of course. Now, is becoming an astrophysicist or robotics engineer still in the books for Alex Chambers?
Oh. I'm not sure if I've had too much of the brains beaten out of me lately. So, maybe. I don't think so, though.
Take us into your family's reaction when you went from wanting to be an astrophysicist and robotics engineer to a professional MMA fighter.
Ooh, I don't think they were very happy.
It was a risky move. The sport wasn't exactly where it's at the moment. Now, there's an ad, Alex, that plays on Fox Sports that pretty much plays every single time we watch any fights on Foxtel. For anyone listening in America, that's obviously our cable TV. The ad features you, Mark Hunt, Robert Whittaker, and Anthony Perosh doing some shadow boxing in a park at night, and at one point you're carrying around an old TV. Just wondering, how awkward was it shooting that stuff in the middle of the night? And did anybody call the cops on you guys thinking that you were a bunch of naughty hoodlums?
I'm surprised no one did call the cops because we were in the middle of the eastern suburbs, so of Sydney, and no one called the cops. I don't think. We were out of there pretty quick. It only took like what felt like 1 or 2 minutes actually of filming. So
wow.
So if they did call the cops, we were out of there.
You guys should be cat burglars if you ever think of that as like a side career path.
It was actually really fun. It was in the dark in the middle of a park in the eastern suburbs, and like I said, it was 2 minutes, and then we were out of there. So it was pretty cool.
You guys are like Australia's version of the Avengers.
Yeah, they're like it's like Ocean's 14 with Mark Hunt, Robert Whittaker, Anthony Perosh, and Alex Chambers. Now, Alex, seeing as you're going to be the closest expert that we'll ever have to this topic, fill me and Casper in. Is it possible for a race of robots to take over Australia, as seen in the Terminator movies?
Are you referring to what's going on right now with Stephen Hawking and Reddit?
I didn't even know Stephen Hawking was on Reddit, but if so...
We're not that intelligent, but explain this Stephen Hawking thing to us.
And should we...
he's been
how worried
doing
should we
this
be?
question and answer thing on Reddit at the moment. Everyone can ask him a question, and I believe that's where it came from. And, it's been brought... he's been asked about, the Terminator robots and them taking over the world, and...
It's pretty much a lock. It's going to happen.
That's where it came up. And, he says that we've got to be very careful, and it's a dangerous thing. And he believes it's something we've got to be really careful about producing these robots.
But what do you think? Probably like 90% likely?
Yeah, we don't want to know what Stephen Hawking thinks. Who's Stephen Hawking? We want Alex Chambers' professional opinion on the matter.
Exactly.
Only one of the greatest physicists in the entire universe.
Yeah, but who has he beaten in the UFC? Has he beaten anyone in the top 10?
Has he beaten Kylan Conor with a Kimura? No, there you go. Enough said.
So what was the question? I missed the question then. Can they...
Yeah, race of robots taking over Australia, as may or may not have happened in the Terminator movies. How likely is it?
Well, I think, if you start producing those robots, I think there's, it's quite likely it could happen in the future at some stage if we're not careful.
There you go.
I feel like the Aussie robots would be a lot more laid back than the robots in like the US and everything.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very true.
You could woo them with beer. They'd be more like in America to be like Terminator robots. Here they'd be more like Bender from Futurama, like really, really just laid back.
Very true.
Now, Alex, moving on to the next question. What's your favorite moment from Tough 20 that wasn't shown or captured on camera?
Oh gosh, there was so many so much happened on the show that that wasn't captured. We were filmed 24/7, and you only saw little bits of things that went on. And I don't know, I'm just I guess getting to know some of the girls really well, and some of the training sessions I did with Jojo and Randa, we were running out in the sunset, doing some extra training. You really get to know, each other when you're doing something like that.
Of course.
But you're looking for juicy stuff,
The juicy
Yeah,
stuff.
like
Yeah, like
sushi. Did anybody pee in anyone's sushi?
Yeah.
Is basically what we're asking.
the Big Brother upper late version of Tough 20.
No, that didn't happen.
I owe you $20, Casper. Now, Alex, is In-N-Out Burger as amazing as people say?
I used to think it was pretty amazing, and I guess it is. But lately I haven't been all for it as much as I used to be. I don't know what it is. Maybe, I've just eaten it too much. But no, for your first few times, yeah, it is pretty amazing.
Yeah, good old In-N-Out Burger. Now, the final question, Alex, what we'll wrap up with is, how are you beating, what's the official prediction? How are you beating Paige Van Zandt at UFC 191? We don't want the game plan, we just want the result.
The result, I'd say it'd be, the Karate Kid kick or something. Do I have to kick around?
Yes. To make it, I mean, that's a pretty juicy prediction right there, but to make it extra juicy, the cherry on top, what round are you karate kicking Paige Van Zandt in?
Ooh, round one, I'll say. But you'll have to tune in on, for you Aussies out there, September 6th to see what really happens.
I imagine it would be like the crane kick. What was it, Casper?
The crane kick.
The crane kick. Are we talking the crane kick here, Alex?
Yeah, we're talking the crane kick.
So are you out there right now, like on the edge of a boat, practicing this crane kick, or are you pulling this thing out of nowhere?
Oh, I didn't realize I had my video on. I didn't see that.
Yeah, we know exactly what you're doing. And please put down the In-N-Out Burger. All right, you've got weight to make, Alex. We can't wait, guys. Catch Alex Chambers fighting Paige Van Zandt, UFC 191, September 5th, if you're in America, or if you're an Aussie like us, September 6th for all the time difference. Don't forget to follow Alex on Twitter at AlexChambersMMA, and tune in for the fight. Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
No, thanks very much for having me.
This is UFC Hall of Famer Pat Miletich, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys, our next guest is now regarded as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the UFC. We all watched his dominating performance over Renan Barao last weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the UFC Bantamweight champion of the world, TJ Dillashaw. Welcome back to the show. How are you, TJ?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Now, let's speak about that performance last weekend. You absolutely dominated Renan Barao. Did it live up to your expectations? Because from where we were sitting, you looked pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the expectations were. I just was going in there with the mentality of wanting to punk him, stand in front of him, and beat him. I wanted to beat him and break him all in the same fight.
You certainly did that. 2 dominant performances over Renan. He's in a funny position in his career where it's obvious he's killing himself with these weight cuts. It doesn't look like he's going to get a shot at you again. What would you do next if you were in his shoes? Seems that moving up to featherweight would benefit him, but his teammate Aldo is the champion there. What do you think? Does he have to go to featherweight now?
I'm not really sure. I mean, he was on weight. He was on weight early this time. He was on weight the morning of check-in. So, I mean, he looked a lot leaner. Looked like he got his diet under control. I mean, I think he just needs to maybe change up some training a little bit. I'm not really sure. I mean, he's been doing the same stuff for so long now that and working with the same coaches. I'm not really sure. It's a tough one. Maybe moving up makes him faster in his weight class You know, he is a big dude and could go to 45 very easily. You know, he might be a faster athlete if he does that. I don't think it would hurt.
Yeah, no, certainly. Now, TJ, Dominick Cruz was on the MMA Hour, and he said that he thinks you're a wannabe who doesn't know what it's like to fight a real champion. I'm just wondering, what were your thoughts when you read those comments?
Conor's, should I just mix it up? He's acting like Conor. He's acting like Conor McGregor right now is what I really think. He's just talking a bunch of nonsense. He's trying to stay relevant while being hurt. You know, he's been out of the game for the last 4 years. You know, I mean, no one's seen him fight, and now all of a sudden he thinks he's a tough guy because he got one finish in his career. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's crazy. He's just talking a lot and keeping himself relevant so that he can get the next title shot. Because really, he doesn't even really deserve it. He can't even stay healthy for one fight. The only way he deserves it is by talking it up and making it a big fight. So I think that's the strategy.
Wow. It's interesting that you say that he doesn't deserve it. I also want to get your thoughts on who else you would be fighting if it wasn't him and if someone else deserves it. But just sort of on a side note, you know, he also insinuated the division has struggled without him, saying now that I'm coming back, it can get back on its feet again. That's the truth. You know, you've been the face of the division for a while now. How does that make you feel when you read those comments? And do you think it's just more, you know, trash talk?
I think it was just trash talk. You know, he knows I'm a good fighter. I'm going to come in there and I'm going to put it on him, man. I mean, he's saying that I haven't fought a guy like him. Well, he's never had a guy in his weight class like me until now. You know what I mean? Like, that's what everyone always says. Oh, you haven't fought a guy like me. Well, yeah, because I haven't fought Dominick Cruz. You've also never fought me. So it's kind of just ridiculous things that I feel like he's been saying. And, you know, I'm going to make sure to shut his mouth when we fight.
It's interesting because he also took aim at Duane Ludwig, obviously one of the best striking coaches in the world. He said, I could be Duane Ludwig's coach straight up, and so could Alliance MMA head trainer Eric Del Fierro. Do you think he went a bit too far with those comments?
Absolutely. You know, he's, like I said, he's trying to raise his stink, and he's doing a good job of it. You know, I mean, does he have any fighters, you know, I mean, other than himself? So right now, I don't think he could train Duane Ludwig at all. You know, I think it's just Duane being confident in me and saying on the interview that I would knock him out in 2 rounds. And I think that kind of pissed Cruz off, you know, so he's just firing back.
When Cruz does return, you know, just sort of, you know, in a quick sort of wrap-up, how do you see a fight between you and him playing out? And also, I know you just won the title, you know, on top of the world, sorry, you know, defended the title on top of the world, but do you see a time frame at all for when that fight could take place?
It's all about him. I'm healthy. You know, I came out of that fight unscathed. I'm ready to fight tomorrow. You know, he's the one with the bum leg and has to heal up and get ready. So I think that's why he's talking all this crap. You know, he can't actually even fight. So the only way he's going to work and win to the title shot is by talking, and that's his only shot. So, I mean, it's as soon as he gets healthy, you know, I got to figure out when that's going to be because if it's, I mean, I don't want to wait forever, you know. I mean, who knows if he can even get healthy? I mean, the guy's been injured more than he hasn't.
Nah, certainly, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, TJ, we don't have very much time with you, so before we wrap up, we just want to get your thoughts on fellow teammate Chad Mendes' performance against Conor McGregor a few weeks ago. Fans are still wondering what happened to Chad as he was pretty dominant but looked tired from the get-go. Give us the lowdown. What do you think happened? Was it the fact that he didn't have a proper training camp?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Chad was out drinking beer, fishing, and hunting when he got a phone call. You know, I mean, he got 10 days to train for a guy that's been training for 3 months for a title fight. You know, I mean, and Chad's always had to work really hard to get in peak conditioning shape anyways because of the way he's built. You know, he's a very strong, muscle-bound guy, and he's had to work really hard on getting that cardio up for his fights. And, you know, anybody on 10 days' notice with that much pressure and that much adrenaline going into the fight, dude, I mean, for one, he had adrenaline dump, and 2, he was, you know, out of shape. So it was hard to even think that Chad would have enough cardio in the last 5 rounds. I was hoping Chad was going to finish him. You know, I thought he had. I mean, I know he has the skills to do it. He showed that in the fight. He was dominating the 2 rounds until the very end of the second round, and I just feel like he got stopped a little early.
Yeah, it was a funny stoppage. Do you think an in-shape Chad Mendes beats Conor McGregor?
Absolutely, 100%. I put my money on it.
Now, I mean, the big talk, of course, is, and we spoke about this briefly when you were on the show last time, is a super fight between you and Conor. Now that he's the champion, is this still a priority for you? Is it still something that you want to do before you sort of retire from the sport, have that super fight with Conor McGregor?
Absolutely, but I don't think he's going to last that long. You know, I mean, I'd like to do it now if I could, because I don't think he's going to last and be champion forever. You know, he's definitely going to get beat. I think Mendes showed the holes in his game. And I think people are going to take advantage of it. You know, I think Chad Mendes beats him. I think Frankie Edgar beats him. You know, I I don't know if he's going to beat Aldo after watching that.
One more question before we let you go, TJ. John Dodson, it seems like everybody's calling you out now. John Dodson has obviously spoken and said that his plan is to go out there at UFC 191 and defeat Demetrius Johnson. I'll read you a quote. He says, "I'll go get that title, and then when I've beat up Demetrius Johnson, I'm going to beat TJ Dillashaw. He can sit there or run around and tell everybody that I'm just running my mouth, but I've seen him with his eyes glazed over, him being hurt, being cut after I knocked him out last time." Your thoughts on that? And do you think you and Dodson would be fighting again? Because if you rematch him, you've got a clean record, and that's everybody avenged.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to beat Demetrius either. I mean, that guy gasses out as well. He's got zero cardio. I'm not worried about John Dodson. You know, I was a very immature fighter. I had 4 fights back then, you know, and that fight got stopped early as well. So, you know, he got a little lucky. Looked like he closed his eyes and threw a big left hook, and I was a dumb guy running in with my hands down. So I'm a completely different fighter, and I would tear that kid up.
Wonderful. Well, look, we really appreciate the time, champ. We know you're busy right after your fight, taking some time off, so we appreciate you coming onto the show. Guys, you can follow TJ on Twitter at TJ Dillashaw. A fantastic performance last weekend, and a real honor having you on the program.
I really appreciate it, guys.
What's up, fight fans? I'm the reason mixed martial arts is banned in New York, Tommy Toehold. And you're listening to Submission Radio. Let's do this shit!
All right, guys, a special treat here on Submission Radio. We have Jake Shields after his World Series Fighting 22 fight with Rousey Palhares. Jake, thank you for joining us. We know you're quite a busy guy, and it's not the best time to be talking right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a little frustrated that everything happened. That was, you know, not the best fight, so I'm not too happy, but it's all good.
You seem almost somewhat mellow. You know, what was going through your mind during the heat of the moment? You know, after the submission, after you stood up, it looked like people were trying to get into the cage. What was going through your mind?
Man, I was just really pissed. The guy had just gouged my eyes over and over. You know, I haven't watched the fight yet. I'm not sure if it's evident on TV. The guy kept catching his thumb and digging at my eyes, and it was 100% absolutely deliberate. You know, I've never in 40 fights and maybe 100 submission matches been gouged once. This guy did it over and over, at least 8 times. You know, I kept telling Mazzagatti he was completely ignoring it, and he just, you know, allowed this guy to blatantly cheat. And then on top of that, you know, he cranked the submission after I tapped, so it was just really irritating.
Yeah, surely. Now, just talking about the eye gouges first, it looked from what we were watching, they were quite blatant. It happened over and over. How much of an effect did that have on your vision in the fight and overall performance? Because it looked like near the end there was a bit of blood around the eyes.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was more mad about that than a late submission, because I feel like it affected my fight. You know, it's hard to say for sure. I hate being a guy making excuses. It's not the way I am. But, I mean, I was winning the fight, and I go in the 3rd round, you know, not being able to see good. I just felt like it, you know, I also let it get to me mentally. The fact that, I mean, that's my fault for letting it get to me mentally, but the fact that the ref was completely ignoring it. You know, I was telling him over and over, and he seemed to just not care.
There was a moment where Steve Mazzagatti finally stopped the fight, or sort of put it on hold, and he warned Rousey Palhares. I think a lot of people watching the fight expected him to deduct the point, and judging by the way you reacted, it seemed like you were pretty frustrated. Were you surprised that he didn't deduct a point, and what did you think of Mazzagatti's reffing in the fight as a whole?
Man, I was absolutely astonished to take a point. I mean, honestly, I've never really paid attention to Steve Mazzagatti. I know he has a terrible reputation as a ref, but I've never really paid attention, to be honest. I didn't know if it deserved or not, but after today, I think the guy's a joke, and I'll refuse to have him ref me again, you know, especially because I had some work done at the end. But there's no way I would let the guy ref me. He blatantly let a guy who's known as a cheater. I mean, I've never seen him gouge eyes before, but he blatantly let the guy just put his thumbs in my eyes over and over. It wasn't the kind of eye gouge that you see, you know, when guys are throwing punches. He was taking his hands and trying to gouge my eyes out.
Just curious, because before a fight, a lot of the time the referee will speak to a fighter. Did you have a chance to speak with Steve and really let him know that, look, this is a guy that's been known for certain dirty techniques. Can you please watch out for them, and can you please be careful in this fight, because I'm quite certain something's going to go down. Did you have that conversation with him before the fight?
You know, I knew he was a guy known for, you know, holding submissions too long, but I'd never really seen him gouging my eyes, so that kind of hit completely unexpected, you know. Steve Mazzagatti came in and said, yeah, I told him, you know, no late submissions, I'm not going to allow that, whatnot, but I definitely wasn't prepared for the eye gouging. I mean, at one point I thought maybe I should start gouging his eyes back, but I didn't stoop to that level.
Yeah, of course. What about your shoulder? You know, the submission certainly looked like it was cranked too hard. How's the shoulder feeling now? Is there any injuries? And we know you just got out of the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, it's really sore. It's hard to say. You know, it's hard to tell with a shoulder and elbow, like how serious it is. I'm thinking I'll be okay, but it's often over the next couple of days. Yeah, that's something that obviously I'm a lot more irritated about the eye pokes, but that's still ridiculous that he clearly held the submission too long after I tapped.
Well, the submission was held pretty long. Do you think that Steve did a proper job in trying to stop him once you were tapping, or do you think he should have jumped in there a bit sooner?
I really don't know. I'd have to rewatch it. You know, I mean, I don't want to. Obviously, I'm mad at Steve Mazzagatti with the eye couches, but I'm not gonna criticize him for the submission without really knowing.
That's fair enough. Have you had a chance to speak to Ray Sefer or Ali Abdelaziz about the situation yet?
Yeah, they said they blatantly saw the eye pokes as well. I mean, they didn't say what they were going to do, but they definitely were not happy. They were aware that he was cheating, and they seemed very not happy. I mean, I don't blame them. They're in a tricky situation. They're champs, you know. It's like, what do? Do you strip them or not? I mean, I don't know. Personally, I probably would, but that's you know, I respect both of them. That's a decision they're going to have to make.
I mean, Ray did say when he signed Palhares that he'd be watching closely his submissions, and if there was a repeat of the Mike Pierce situation, he wouldn't stay within the company. Just what do you think? What do you think should happen with him? Do you think he should remain champion, or do you think there should be some kind of punishment for the stuff that he did in the octagon? Because a lot of his stuff was obviously blatantly illegal.
Yeah, you know, I think it was blatant. I think he's probably suspended, especially with his track record. I mean, like I said, it's not my place to say. That's between the athletic commission and them. I don't know. But I know if I was in charge, I'd definitely suspend him.
As far as what's next for you, Jake, I mean, where do you go from here? Obviously, the fight just ended. You're going to need some time off. Would you want an immediate rematch if that was an opportunity?
Yeah, man, I want to fight the guy in the street, to be honest. I want to gouge his eyes back. I want to bite him. I want to kick him in the balls. I want to actually fight the guy. You know, if I see him tonight, I'm coming after him. Like, I don't like the guy. I mean, if you play by rules, he's not following the rules. I don't know. I mean, I'll fight him again in the cage, but maybe I'll have to stoop to his level if I have a shitty ref.
Jake, before we let you go, just one final question. Nate Diaz and Nick were there to support you. There was a little bit of altercation between them and some other people at the event. Could you shed any light on that? Do you know exactly what happened? And they would have been pretty angry with what happened to you. What did they say to you after the fight?
Man, I went straight to the back. I haven't had a chance to talk to them yet because I think they had to leave after that. So I don't really know too much about it. I didn't realize it was going on until after that I heard it was like Nate and Khabib or, you know, so much of the Russians, I guess, fighting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I got some text messages from my friends. I'm probably going to go meet up with those guys now. So I'll have more information later.
No worries. Well, we won't speak to you then, but look, we hope you enjoy the rest of your night. We hope you feel better. Guys, don't forget to follow Jake Shields on Twitter at JakeShieldsAJJ, and we look forward to hearing from you soon, Jake.
Great. Thanks a lot. Bye.
There you guys go, getting it straight from Jake Shields. We really appreciate the time from Jake. This was obviously very close to his fight finishing up. He was in the hospital. He gave us 5 minutes. What a great guy. But Casper, World Series of Fighting at 22. I mean, a lot of people did get a chance to watch it because UFC 190 was on at the same time. Not as much media there, but it was crazy stuff going on. Let's quickly talk about this altercation that the Diaz brothers had with Khabib and the whole team there. What did you think when you heard this?
Didn't really surprise me, to be honest. I mean, you got the Diaz brothers, and I feel like it was a bomb waiting to explode. Like, the Diaz brothers have a lot of beefs with a lot of people, and I'm not picking sides. I'm not saying whose fault it is, but, like, you know, Anthony Pettis, I know that him and Nate Diaz had a lot of back and forths, and a lot of people say that around the media rooms and things like that, like, there's a lot of tension, and Nate Diaz would be walking around, and, you know, a lot of other fighters, they claim that the Diaz brothers, or let's say Nate, because he's obviously the one in the back nowadays, because he's fighting a lot more than Nick, you know, he'll be mean-mugging and things like that. So when you've got him in the crowd, and there's not necessarily security, like in a media room or in the back of the UFC, it doesn't really surprise me. And the Diaz brothers, they're the type of guys, they're willing to go anytime, anywhere. So, I mean, if I'm the UFC, I'm making Khabib versus Nate Diaz as soon as I can, because there's a real beef there.
Yeah, it would be a great fight. And, you know, a lot of headlines, but it wasn't as bad as people say it was. Have a watch the video. Someone from MMA Junkie put it together. They were there with the camera. It wasn't as bad as it could have been, but certainly does build a lot of interest in the fight. I agree with you. You know, moving on to the fight.
Just quickly, though, in that MMA Junkie video, I couldn't even see them properly. Like, I couldn't even see Nate and Khabib. I think that may have been the aftermath, because the two guys that it looks like they get into it, I think they may be people from their entourage. I think
what happens is Nate and Nick quickly get moved away.
Yeah.
So they quickly get pushed away. Khabib's actually there in the middle.
I see Khabib, yeah.
In the action. I don't think they actually pushed each other or anything. I think as soon as they saw that Nick and Nate were starting to mouth off, they got pushed away straight away. Possibly because their friends were afraid what's going to happen to them in terms of, you know, what the UFC would do to them if they get caught fighting. outside and at an event, or how much it would cost them or something. So yeah, not as much from that. Apparently, Nate threw a drink at one of them.
What kind of beverage? Is there any journalists out there who can name the beverage?
I'll tell you what, it would be a Pulitzer winning prize if they do. Not sure exactly what beverage it was, but hopefully it wasn't one in a glass bottle, because it just reminds me of a time we were at a music festival. We don't have to go into that right now.
Bottle to the face. You know what they need? They need that guy from South Park there. Like, anytime the Diaz brothers are there, like, now, Skeeter, he ain't hurting anybody.
The funny thing is, we've got a mutual friend who was actually in Las Vegas. He was just hanging around Las Vegas, ran into Nick Diaz, and they became good friends, and they ended up going out together. Nick Diaz took him to the gym, took him out with him. So apparently he is such a nice guy if you run into him. But if you do cross his hairs, maybe don't be in the vicinity.
Well, okay, before we get off World Series of Fighting 22, let's just talk about this whole Jake Shields, Palhares situation.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times where it was hard to see because of the camera angle, but there were other times, like I'm talking about eye gouging, but there was other times where it looked like Palhares' fingers were clearly in Jake Shields' face. And I mean, Jake sort of said it himself, because one of the questions I did have was, you know, is this something that's happened to you before? I mean, there are lots of times, like for anyone that trains MMA or BJJ, like, you know, sometimes you can accidentally knee people in the balls, or like if you're inexperienced, you might stick your fingers here and there. But I mean, these guys aren't amateurs, you know what I mean? And when you see his fingers going in, I've never seen someone complain that many times about fingers going in the eye. You know, Jake seems like a pretty honest guy. So I would say there was a lot of eye gouging there. And the fact that Steve Mazzagatti, I mean, I really think, like, if Big John McCarthy was refereeing there, it probably wouldn't have happened. Definitely not to that extent. He may very well have actually pulled Palhares off Jake Shields during that submission, and he certainly wouldn't have swatted at Palhares like he was swatting flies away, like, now, Palhares, no more of that. Like, if you're a referee, you need to get in there, you need to basically be disciplined of the fighters, and you need to state your authority. And I just don't think Steve Mazzagatti did that. He was like the after-school care substitute teacher that you always take advantage of in primary school because you know they're not going to do anything. You know, and that was probably my biggest beef. What did you think about it, Dennis?
Yeah, it was really, really frustrating watching Steve do his work tonight. I mean, I absolutely agree with you. I think if a Big John McCarthy was in there and that many eye gouges happened, I think it would have been a disqualification, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And one of the things that annoyed me about Steve and the way he was doing his business was when he did stop the fight, he didn't stand the fighters up. So you didn't get Jake to get off Husimar. Husimar gets up, goes into his corner, then he explains everything to him.
Yeah.
It was like, just stop. It looked really amateur. Amateur hour to me. And this is dangerous stuff. Eye gouges are just even worse than eye pokes, because here you have a guy gouging someone's eyes, and people like Michael Bisping and other guys in MMA will tell you, you know, one bad eye gouge, that could be your career. That's a detached retina. Could be a million different things. And, you know, we didn't get all the best angles, but a couple of the angles that they had on the broadcast, man, it looked like a couple of brutal eye gouges. So if we're able to see that on camera in a different country, you'd think a guy like Steve Mazzagatti, who's there in the octagon, you know, or in the ring, in the World Series of Fighting ring, would be able to see that. So I don't know exactly what happens now when it comes to Steve. I don't know if you can lodge a complaint, if you could possibly go in front of some kind of tribunal and answer for this, but it's something that was really frustrating to watch, and I honestly do think it had a major impact on the fight. Because let's go into Jake Shields' shoes for a second. You have this guy eye gouging you, have this referee who's not doing anything about it, and you're frustrated, you're pissed off. Number one, maybe you can't see as well. You know, maybe your face is hurting, your eyes are hurting. I mean, it's a really, really frustrating experience, and you feel really powerless as well. I mean, when you get into in a fight, you should be protected 100% of the time from any illegal move. Otherwise, you know, you feel frustrated, you feel sort of not scared, but you feel like there's nothing you can do, and you get put in an awkward position. So that definitely gets you off your mental game, I reckon.
And not only that, but it's distracting. And I think a referee like John McCarthy would have stood them up, each of them go to their corner, and you get maybe not 5 minutes, not an official 5 minutes, but like Big John McCarthy would understand obviously what Jake's going through. He'd bring in a doctor to try and milk it a little bit and let him get his bearings back. But with Jake Shields, it's like going through your mind, you're probably pissed off that you're getting your eyes gouged, and then it's like, all right, you've got a little break, and then boom, you're straight back into it. Meanwhile, Mazzagatti's not doing much. If it's me in there, and again, I'd never be a fighter, but if it was me in there, I wouldn't be thinking about the fight so much. I'd be thinking about how pissed off I am that Mazzagatti isn't doing anything. So I think tonight Mazzagatti looked really lost. It was almost like a situation that he didn't expect, even though he should have been prepared for it. This is exactly why you're in the cage, and he didn't know what to do. And exactly. I don't think he did a great job. What about the actual the submission, the Kimura? You know, there are people. We jumped on Shurto, we had a look, saw what people are saying. There's people that are saying it was normal, that it was absolutely fine. There's other people, it's about 50-50, and there's other people that are saying it's absolutely ridiculous. What did you think, Dennis? Did you think he cranked it too long?
Well, Cass, he counted it, and it was 10 times that he tapped, and tapping 10 times is 9 times too many. You should tap once, and the guy lets go. So I reckon it was too long. When a move like a Kimura, I don't know how many of our listeners have actually been put in one, but one tiny move from past the point where you submit can damage your shoulder forever, depending on your flexibility. So that is not a move you can hold in. Much like the knee submissions that he had, the leg submissions that he had, this is a very, very dangerous move, and I absolutely do agree that he held it in for too long. Cass, what did you think?
Yeah, I've rewatched the clip a number of times. I've watched it over and over again. I've watched it in slow motion. I've watched the replay, and I definitely think it was held too long. I know there's always sort of that gray area, but you got to think about it like this. Look at the angle of Excuse me. Look at the angle of Jake's arm when he taps, and then look at the angle of his arm when Palhares lets go. There's a big change in angle. And I mean, for anyone who's been put in a Kimura before, it's a really, really shitty situation. It's a shitty thing to go through. If you do BJJ, like, I'm the type of guy, like, I'll tap straight away. As soon as the guy sort of has it and starts cranking, I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm done. It's not worth any kind of injury. And you can feel the strain on your shoulder. So to the people who are saying, oh, well, it was only like 1 second extra or 2 seconds extra. Yeah, but when it's your arm, it feels like a lifetime. And the thing is about these guys, like, they're not cowards like me. They're not going to just tap because they go, oh, well, you know, I'm close. My arm's nearly there. This is a title fight. These guys are professionals. A guy like Jake Shields, who would have been in that position so many times in so many gyms, he's only going to tap when he feels like his arm is at the limit. Title fight, title's on the line. He's not going to tap when, oh, you know, I'm kind of almost there. So if he's tapping like a madman, his arm's already at the limit, and Palhares continues to crank. That's the thing. It's not like he held it in the same position. He continued to crank even more. And I think that's pretty much the worst thing about it. I mean, again, like, get somebody to put you in a Kimura and then have them get to a point where you need to tap and then make them continue cranking for like 1 second, 2 seconds, and then see how it feels. I just, yeah. And like, I know that people look at Palhares every time he fights, and his submissions are really under a magnifying glass, but it's just like, man, he knows that as well. It's not just everybody else watching him. He knows that as well. So knowing that, you'd think that he'd be extra careful. I know it's a title fight, and I know you got to wait till the referee steps in, but for some, like, if you watch Steve Mazzagatti, he's basically trying to pry off Palhares, and of course he has no chance because Steve Mazzagatti weighs like 10 kilos, and Palhares is like a fire hydrant. But the referee shouldn't have to get to that point of actually prying a fighter off another fighter. Yeah, certainly. So it was a bit ridiculous. You know, finally, just our thoughts on what we think should be done. I definitely think Husama should be suspended. I think he's had enough occurrences happen where it's not just bad luck. And just on the eye gouging alone, I think something needs to be done. I mean, this guy is a champion for your company. Something needs to be done about this. At the same time, I still think this is good for World Series of Fighting because people are going to want to see someone beat this guy. He's almost like a natural heel. And I don't know who you put up against him. Maybe you do a rematch with Jake Shields. Maybe that does make sense. I think Jake looked really good in the fight up until the point he got caught. Maybe those eye gouges caught onto him. Maybe Husama just did a really good Kimura because that Kimura was amazing. Oh, Not taking anything away from him. He's a very, very skilled guy, but just the way he goes about it all, I mean, it's just tough for him because he's a very skilled guy, but the stuff that he does takes away from his skill. And that's something that I was thinking before we sort of started talking about it. I wanted to make sure we mentioned that Kimura, the way he got it, was actually really impressive. It was really impressive up until the part where he held it too long. So, I mean, kudos to Palhares, especially the fact that he was losing the fight. That in itself was impressive, that it was a come-from-behind victory. If he had just let go a little bit earlier, and if he didn't gouge Jake's eyes, it'd be a completely different situation. We'd be talking about how great this guy is, how he turned around and turned his life around, turned his career around. And I mean, to be able to do that to Jake Shields, that's a huge deal. Like, people have often spoken about how hard it is when Jake Shields is on top of you. And he got the Kimura in as Jake Shields went for the takedown. And then Jake Shields obviously, went to reverse it. Palhares stayed on him. Very similar to like a Frank Mir-Nogueira situation. So it was a really impressive win, but that's not what we're going to remember about this fight. And I think you're right about Palhares being a natural heel. I mean, he's almost going to be a draw now just because every time he fights, people are going to be like, wow, who's he going to maim now? Like, what kind of controversy are we going to see from here on? And you're right, people are going to want to see someone come along and beat him. Tonight, it wasn't Jake Shields. I know that Ray Sefo said that they're going to be watching things, watching Palhares and making sure that he doesn't have like a repeat of the Mike Pierce situation, but I don't see them firing Palhares. I don't think it's going to happen. They're still a fairly young company and they're trying to hold on to any name that they have. I don't see him going anywhere, unfortunately.
Certainly, and arguably one of their biggest stars because of all the controversy. So it will be interesting. They're going to be put in a difficult situation because what do you do with him? You can't really, you can't fire him because he's a big star for you. But at the same time, you have to put your foot down and do something because you said you're going to be watching him. Well, here you go. You watched him do this.
Yeah.
What are you going to do now? The ball's in their court. I'm interested to see what Ray does. He's a great guy. We hung out with him in Adelaide. He's a man's man. He's a fighter himself. So he's a fair guy, but I don't know what needs. I don't want to see him suspended, but I just want to see something happen. I want to see some kind of slap on the wrist at the least.
I think I do want to see him suspended. I think he should. This is ridiculous. I feel like every time there's like this blurred line with Palhares, and it's like, oh, did he, didn't he? I think it's pretty clear that he did hold on too long, in my opinion. Then there's the gouging. I mean, I can't vouch for that, but it looked like that happened. That's minimum two really dirty things. And then there's the fence grab at the start of the fight, which is whatever, because I mean it's annoying, but it happens in almost every fight. You wouldn't suspend a guy for a fence grab, but that's a lot of illegal things in one fight. Then you look at the history. I think you have to suspend him.
Yeah, well, I'd want to hit him if I was Ray. I'd probably hit him where it hurts most, and that's the prize money. Take a percentage away. I mean, that's the best way to teach someone a lesson. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens and follow the story. Now, Cass, another event happening, obviously, which is why partly the reason is why not that so much media was covering World Series of Fighting 22 is because Ronda Rousey was fighting over in Brazil at UFC 190. A big card, a very, very long card, a very, very long main card. Kicking it off from the prelims, we got Patrick Cummins versus Fei Zhao. Patrick Cummins, Cass, is a guy that we love having on the show, a great, great guy, and he's been fighting in Brazil quite a bit. What did you think when you found out he'd be on another prelim card in Brazil?
I think, given his loss, I think he's a guy that they really want to build him up. I think they want him to be a force in the light heavyweight division, and so far, he's had an interesting ride. He obviously lost to Ovin St. Preux. That was on the prelims, right? UFC on Fox, Machida versus Rockhold.
I think so, yeah.
It was. Yeah, it was on the prelim card. That was a stacked event. But I'll tell you what I thought about when I heard the matchup. I thought Fei Zhao's a guy, he's known for being most dangerous in one round. He's a striker, known for being most dangerous in the first round. He has a big tendency to gas, and afterwards he has trouble basically once he's in that hole, he has a hard time digging himself out. We saw what Ryan Bader managed to do to him, just put on an absolute brutal performance over three round destruction. And then I thought, well, Pat Cummins doesn't have the striking of a Ryan Bader. He certainly does have the wrestling. He's probably got some of the best wrestling in the division, except for, say, John Jones or a Daniel Cormier. I thought he'll be able to do the same thing. He'll grind out a decision win. I didn't think Pat Cummins was going to get the stoppage. I thought that Fei Zhao was basically going to be on his back the whole time. And I think with Pat Cummins, there's a few interesting things here. He really, really needs to evolve his striking if he wants to be a bigger threat in the division, because I think at the moment guys sort of see him as a bit one-dimensional. They see him as a guy where they know what he's going to do. He's going to use his wrestling. And much like certain fighters that are somewhat one-dimensional, but you can't stop him still, Pat Cummins does the same thing. He out-wrestles guys. He's incredibly powerful, but in the process, he did take a lot of damage to the face. I want to ask you, Dennis, were you worried at the start when you saw Pat Cummins taking those punches? Did you think that he'd end up stopping Fei Zhao?
Oh, certainly. When Pat Cummins was taking those punches, I thought it was over. I didn't think there was any chance for him to come back. He didn't look very good at the start of the fight. And I was quite worried. I thought from a standpoint for Cummins, I thought, I don't know, because his face, Cass, straight away, like those eyes were starting to swell over. He looked brutal right at the start of that fight. And that was just from a few punches from Featherweight. And partly because a lot of his shots, his head placement was right where that uppercut was. He was getting hit in the face. It looked like he had a broken nose eventually at one point. I didn't think he was feeling it. At the beginning of that fight, I don't know if it was jitters or if he just didn't feel right, but it wasn't the same Pat Cummins that we're used to seeing.
I mean, in a way it was, because Pat Cummins, he still doesn't quite look comfortable striking. And that's what I'm saying. Like, he really needs to evolve. He really needs to improve his striking if he wants to be a threat. Because, at the moment, guys know what he's going to do. He's going to go in there and try and take him down. But if they have, and they don't respect his striking. I mean, I think if he does improve, he's a strong guy. He can have a lot of power. But at the moment, guys just kind of think, well, he's not going to knock me out. He's not going to do much damage on the feet. I just need to watch out for that shot. If he can add striking to his arsenal, and I think he has the natural knockout power. He's not confident, and he doesn't necessarily have the technique. And I think he's still nervous. If he can improve his striking and go out there, and he needs a win where he knocks someone out on the feet, or at least puts on a clinic against someone on the feet, and people will go, oh shit, I really need to watch out for this guy's striking. And of course, he can always fall back on his wrestling. But yeah, I was definitely worried there for Pat Cummins as well. The interesting thing is, if you compare the Ryan Bader fight against Featherweight, Ryan Bader put it on him, and Ryan Bader was in nowhere near as much trouble as Pat Cummins. And Featherweight does hit hard, especially for the first round. The interesting thing is, though, Ryan Bader went to decision. Patrick Cummins actually managed to finish Featherweight. So that in itself made it actually a very impressive win.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I mean, I think Featherweight looked terrible in this fight. I think he looked really out of shape. I mean, he's usually got terrible cardio, but I think he looked super terrible today. And by that last round, when he got him down, without hitting him in the face, it looked like he just wanted the fight to finish. When he was lying there and he was just so exhausted that he was just struggling to breathe. After Pat hit him in the face, I think once or twice, his mouth guard flew out of his mouth and out of the octagon. Wow. And I don't want to say he deliberately spat it out or anything, but I definitely saw him giving up early before, Pat landed some more punches in that position. He just looked absolutely exhausted. He's got to do something about his cardio, because he can't just go out and knock people out in the first round. You have to be durable enough to at least last 5 rounds. I don't know what kind of game plan he's thinking in the long run with his career, but certainly there's got to be some kind of training, something he can do to improve his cardio, Cass. You can't just go out there and look like that every time that you fight.
Well, he's looked horrible since he's come over to the UFC. His only win is against Igor Pokrajic, who's no longer in the UFC. He's been knocked out by Thiago Silva, destroyed by Ryan Bader, and now he got finished by Pat Cummins. He's definitely on the chopping block. I don't know, maybe he needs to move down to middleweight. He might be one of those guys. I don't know how he trains, but I mean, you said it. He didn't look in shape.
It's disturbing, because you got a guy like Pat who rode him hard, grinded him out, but he should have been prepared for that. So I don't know.
And that's a bad matchup for him. Given that he doesn't have the greatest cardio, and you got Pat Cummins who will want to grind you out, that's a horrible matchup. I thought Pat Cummins was going to have more success than he did. He finished him, but I thought he was going to make it look prettier. But I don't know, maybe Featherweight needs to go down to middleweight. He certainly looks soft. When your belly button looks, wider than the Joker's smile, that's not a good thing. He's not at light heavyweight. He's like, his physique is similar to Saul Palhares, except Saul Palhares is a heavyweight and he doesn't have to cut weight.
Oh, certainly, yeah. So I think the hype train for Featherweight long left the station, and now the train of will he keep his job with the UFC is pulling up to the platform, and he's going to make some huge adjustments, I think, if he wants to stick around. I agree with you, Cass. With Pat, he's really got to improve his striking, but what else he needs to improve? I mean, in this fight, he did not look great. I want to go on record and say I don't think he looked very good in this fight, especially at the beginning. What he needs to do is he needs to fix up some of these entries with his takedowns. His face is right there for the punches, and I know he's been working on his striking, but I think the key for him is he needs to find out a way to mix it in with his wrestling. Because when he strikes, he looks like he's striking. And when he's wrestling, he looks like he's wrestling. He's not doing MMA. So he needs to wrestle in a way that incorporates his striking, and he needs to strike in a way that incorporates his wrestling, because it's almost like, all right, he stopped striking, and then 10 seconds go by, and he's going to try and take a shot. And then all right, he didn't get the shot, and then 10 seconds go by, and he's going to start striking. So he really needs to figure that out, because with a lot of his shots, his face is open for those types of Featherweight shots, just wild swing punches, uppercuts, and so shots like that. I really thought he was going to use the clinch more against a guy like Featherweight to avoid those uppercuts and go for those kinds of takedowns. But yeah, he's incredibly tough. But there's a lot of improvement that he needs to make before he really challenges the upper echelon of the division, I think.
And I think he's still in that middle ground. He was ranked 14th. I don't know if that puts him any higher. I don't even know if Featherweight was ranked, to be honest. But yeah, like coming off a loss against OSP where he got caught by a guy who arguably has a lot more knockout power than Featherweight. I mean, the errors in the last fight, they're still there. Personally, I'd like to see Pat Cummins try maybe cheeky barrel roll on his entries. Maybe just, jump forward, do a roll, and then bam, into a takedown. What's the worst that can happen? But no, I think with Pat Cummins, the other thing is I think he's got that paper skin that like GSP and Fedor had. You know how like a light breeze and GSP would be busted open, and same with Fedor. I think he has that. Like Fedor hits hard, but I think it's also the fact that Pat Cummins, he's just got thin skin. Some people do, some people don't. Like Dan Henderson and BJ Penn, they've got shark skin. And then other guys like Fedor, GSP, they bleed and they bruise really easily. I think Pat Cummins has that.
I mean, he's an interesting position. We were talking about the rankings. I just had a look, and Featherweight is ranked number 10.
Wow.
Above Little Nog, above Fabio Maldonado, and Cummins is ranked 14th. So Fabio's just over him. I mean, I don't know.
Shogun's 8. What does that say about the division?
Jeez, I don't know. I don't know what you do with Pat, but he really needs to focus on it. No doubt about it, though. It was a really good fight, and I thought Pat showed a lot of heart, but like you said, Cass, if he wants to move up, there's a lot of improvements to make. And also some great cornering from Ryan Parsons.
You could give Pat Fabio Maldonado. It'd be a fun fight. It'd be the classic grappler versus striker. Fabio would obviously try and knock his head off. Pat would try and out-wrestle him.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's probably the only fight you can give him. I mean, the guys above Fabio are pretty good. Even Little Nog, with his striking and his grappling, I think could be an issue for Pat Cummins.
I think he'd definitely be an issue.
So, I don't know. I don't think he's ready for anyone above Fabio at the moment.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Pat hasn't hit his ceiling. Speaking of ceilings, Neil Magny versus Damian Maia. Another rear naked choke for Damian Maia, another submission. What do you think of this fight, Dennis?
Well, Damian Maia decided to put on a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu workshop in the middle of the octagon today and invited half of Rio to watch. I mean, what can you say? I've had training sessions where my teachers put on those moves on me, and I was letting them do that, and they've had more issues getting into mount. I mean, Damian Maia is just on another level. I was expecting more from Neil Magny. I'm disappointed with him. What kind of game plan do you come in against Damian Maia? One where you stay away from the grappling.
Yeah.
And he did not do that, and he paid the price for it. And, I mean, in the first round, Damian showed him, hey, this is nothing to mess with. I'm in mount, and I'm going to stay here for as long as I want. I expected him to come out in the second round, get some distance, and throw some strikes. It didn't happen, and, yeah, it just shows you can't mess around with Damian Maia. He's like the quicksand Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu man of MMA. As soon as he gets on top of you, you're going to have some issues. You have to take his mind off that with your striking, with other aspects of the game. Unfortunately, Neil Magny didn't have it. I thought he was ready to face a guy like Damian Maia, but in this fight, it was just a one-sided beating in terms of grappling. So a huge win for Damian Maia. I think this was actually the performance of the night for me, apart from Ronda Rousey. A really great fight. It's a shame it was on the prelims. I think a lot of people would have really enjoyed it if they didn't get a chance to watch it. But yeah, it was a rough night for Neil Magny.
Yeah, if you let Damian Maia get on top of you, you're going to have a bad time. I think, like, the impressive... And you said the word quicksand. I was going to use that before we even started doing the episode. I was like, what's a good word of Damian Maia? Quicksand. Boom. There you go. Nailed it. And it's like every time Neil Magny got into half guard, and Damian Maia would get into mount, I felt bad for Neil Magny at one point. I was like, just let him do what he wants. All right, it's gonna happen. just let him do it, and we can move on to the next fight, please. I thought, yeah, look, I mean, if you look at Neil Magny's record, he hasn't really fought anyone big, and I know a lot of people were picking him to be beaten by Hyun-Gyu Lim. I think with Damian Maia, I just thought that maybe he'd be able to keep him at bay a little bit further out. I thought that he'd be able to fight at distance. He's got that crazy long reach. I thought if he maybe just, tries to keep the jab out there and stay at a distance, maybe he can pick him apart, maybe. But no, I was wrong. That's why I don't bet.
that's why we don't bet. I mean, it's a huge learning experience for him. He's only 27, and his last few performances have been performance of the nights. But I mean, Damian Maia's really showed up, and his last fight against Ryan LaFleur wasn't the best performance that we've seen from Maia. So I mean, Ryan LaFleur, he still got dominated, but he still had a couple of okay parts, I think, in that fight. So he looked really, really good in this fight. I mean, the question is asked, Cass, who do you give the guy? Because Ariel Helwani...
Damian Maia?
Yeah, Damian Maia. Because Ariel Helwani tweeted out that apparently Gunnar Nelson wants to fight him, but from a rankings perspective, it doesn't really make much sense. Damian Maia is ranked number 6, and Gunnar Nelson is number 11th. In the post-fight press conference, he said, hey, there's a guy out there called Rory McDonald. He just had a title fight. I wouldn't mind versing him again.
Who, Damian Maia?
Damian Maia, yeah.
Nah. I want to see that fight. They already fought, and it was a boring fight. Damian Maia controlled him for the first round, and then Rory sort of took over, and it was Damian Maia shooting from range, basically, from really far away. I don't want to see that fight ever again. I'd be down for Gunnar Nelson versus Damian Maia, though. I reckon that's good. Both guys... I know Damian Maia's improved his striking a lot over the years. Gunnar Nelson, I mean, he's got some striking, and they're both, pretty goddamn good on the ground. Obviously, Damian Maia being better, but I think Gunnar Nelson wants to test him. I think Gunnar Nelson's kind of going in there thinking, you know what, I don't think he's going to be able to do that to me. I reckon make the fight. They're not that far apart. 6 and 11. There's been big gaps between fights and rankings.
Yeah. No, so I think Gunnar Nelson being ranked number 11th is a bit deceiving to people because this guy is a pretty big star in the division, and he's got people ranked above him where I'm wondering how the hell are they ranked above him? Tarak Saffiedine, number 8. When was the last time he fought? How long can you keep a ranking for? Dun Kim, number 7.
Yeah, look, those guys have been doing all right. I mean, last time we saw Tarak, he was fighting Rory McDonald, and he was like somewhat close to a title shot. But then you got Rick Story, who Damian Maia beat at number 10. So he's won against Gunnar Nelson. And wait, did I say Damian? Yeah, Damian Maia destroyed Rick Story. We all remember the blood squirting rear naked choke / jaw crank of 86. And Gunnar Nelson is below him. I reckon give him Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson.
It will be a huge fight. Maybe take him over to Dublin or something. Who knows? But it'd be a big fight. Very interesting to see what happens there.
Just don't give him a main event because I don't like seeing Damian Maia in 5-round fights. I can only handle so much, mount.
Well, that's right. I mean, everybody above them is taken. I think Damian Maia has one last run left in him. I feel like he's going to have one last go, and if he loses against a top caliber opponent, it has a super snooze fest fight. He's just going to be one of those guys that's down the bottom of the division that beats sort of some of the more average fighters, but puts on like impressive exhibition displays, something like that in Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, and he gassed against Ryan LaFleur, which is why I'm saying I don't want to see him in a main event. But if you want to give him like a co-main event against Gunnar Nelson, I'd be very much fine with that.
And it's interesting because we don't know where he is in terms of his striking as well. Like in this fight, it was primarily grappling. So we're still not sure. Against these guys that try and grapple with him, he dominates them. No doubt about it. But has he improved when he can't just mount a guy for the whole fight and submit him? Has he improved where he's got to stand and bang and mix it all up and throw his strikes? Has he improved in that area?
I mean, him and Chris Weidman went back and forth, many year ago on the feet. His boxing's definitely improved, but I think that's the one where Chris Weidman almost died for his weight cut. I'm pretty sure that was that fight.
Yeah.
Where he cut like 30 pounds or something ridiculous. And
Ray
Longo was crying.
Gave him some bad advice because at in the hotel he was supposed to have a bath and the hot water was turned off. So he was relying on that bath to cut the final weight. But yeah, that was the one where he was passing out, I think, in the sauna or steam room, and Ray Longo thought he was going to die.
Ray Longo was crying, yeah.
Rough stuff. This is why we do radio. Don't have to lose any weight for that. Can gain weight usually from what we've seen, so it's good.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about the women's strawweight fight. Claudia Gadelha versus Jessica Aguilar. Jessica Aguilar making her UFC debut. Didn't go as planned. Claudia Gadelha showing why she is, I believe, ranked number 1 in the women's strawweight division. Absolute clinic. And I have a feeling that it was the UFC trying to not necessarily stick to Jessica Aguilar, but how often do you see an investment, a new fighter, someone who, and I think they want Jessica Aguilar to fight for the title eventually, because you know, she's had success. She's been the World Series of Fighting women's strawweight champion. How often do you see them getting thrown to the wolves? I mean, even who did Overeem fight in his first fight in the UFC?
Was it Brock Lesnar? No.
Brock Lesnar. Yeah, actually, sorry, that was kind of being thrown to the wolves, because I know Dana White said he thought Brock was going to fight. But usually, you get, okay, like Hector Lombard, he was given Tim Boetsch, you know, not top of the division, someone who they thought, oh, yeah, you know, Hector should be able to deal with him. And here you get the number one. So I think maybe the UFC, and other people have said it as well, we're trying to go World Series of Fighting champion. All right, well, we'll show him how much that's worth. Give him Claudia Gadelha and see what happens. So I think Jessica Aguilar, you know, we've seen that she's capable of a lot more. The wrestling was pretty much not a factor at all. I was just super, super impressed with Claudia. What a great performance. And they need to make that rematch happen between her and Joanna.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with you. Would love to see that rematch. That first fight, so close, so close. So great to see a good contender there ready to fight Joanna, because it's tough to find a good one.
Yeah, and many people thought Claudia won. So, yeah, I mean, you know what else I'm happy about? Also, the fact that the women were on the main card, because I don't know if you noticed, but like a lot of the women's fights recently, like it just seems like the UFC, they're in the Ronda Rousey business and they're all about promoting Ronda Rousey, but like when do you see them promote any other female fights? Like when Claudia and Joanna fought, they were like, I think they were on the Fight Pass prelim. They were on like the early prelims, and all of a sudden, oh boom, you've got this number one contender out of nowhere, and people are like, well, how can I get excited if I don't even know who she is? I haven't even seen her fight. So it's good to see a fight like this, which it wasn't an official number one contender fight, but it sort of was. Like Claudia may very well get the next shot. It's good to see them actually put it on the main card, because I feel like that, and even in the bantamweight division as well, there's a lot of the women who fight, and they're fighting on the prelims, and then it's like, well, now they're going to fight for the title, and it's like, who's going to fight on the title? We've barely even seen them.
Yeah, well, I mean, this will really come into play when Ronda Rousey loses the title, because then you don't have someone just selling the fight on one side of the fight. Now you're going to need both names to sell the fight.
That's exactly right. Which I don't foresee happening anytime
soon. So they're not investing in the future, but we'll see what happens. They're pretty wily, these UFC guys. They usually have a plan. What about Bigfoot Silva versus Saul Palhares? So obviously an Aussie guy, so someone that we were looking at as taking the next big step in his career against Bigfoot Silva. Unfortunately, Saul Palhares not looking good in this fight, with some questionable things done in the fight. At one point in the fight, I think he had like, it was almost in mount. He was like half guard, something like that. And he was looking at possibly doing a Kurt Angle ankle lock, Cass. Did you see that point? Did you see that part in the fight? Sort of looked up.
I think it was at the end of the first round.
Let me ask you, were you impressed with Bigfoot running out to the cage and still being able to fight? I mean, I didn't know how much cardio the man had.
You know, well, he was a big guy, and he left his corner behind him. So I was impressed with that. I was like, wow, he's faster than all these much smaller guys.
Do you reckon it was a work? The corner got paid off? I want to know.
You reckon it was fixed? You reckon the corner was actually much faster, but they decided to hold back? Who's paying these guys?
Maybe the corner was like, I choose not to run. But I'll tell you what, Ultimate Warrior, this was not even Batista. It was
certainly wasn't Frankie Edgar running. Did you see how he like was almost mean mugging the cut man? He like ran up to the cut man. I think he was going to run past him. The cut man's like, slow down there. And Bigfoot's like, I will crush you. I will eat you.
I thought it was someone wearing a Batman suit, like in the 80s, where the whole body needed to turn to make like a corner. Now, it was great to see him being able to do that. Thoughts on the fight, Cass? Soa Palhares, do you think he turned up, or were you disappointed with his performance?
I think Soa turned up. I was enjoying watching his embeddeds where he was eating barbecue and stuff like that. I was like, God, I wish we were in an area where the weather wasn't so shithouse right about now like it is in Melbourne.
Yeah, aka Thailand. Such a great facility. Just mind-blowing.
They would, I mean, during the embedders, they were probably up in Brazil. I mean, I wish I was in Brazil eating barbecue with a whole bunch of like Samoans and Tongans and Mark Hunt and stuff. But no, I think Soa definitely turned up. When the fight started, my girlfriend was like, oh, you know, who's winning this one? And I said, honestly, it's kind of a pick 'em fight because, like, Saul Palhares is not known for his striking on the feet. Like, he's got power. He's not that fast, though. And Bigfoot Silva, even though he doesn't have much of a chin left, he's still got power. And I kind of thought, like, I know a lot of people were picking Bigfoot Silva because obviously he's looked dreadful in his last 2 performances, and people think, oh, Saul Palhares, knockout power is going to knock out Bigfoot Silva. But then I thought, I don't know, man, like, Bigfoot Silva, he's wily, he's got that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I thought if it goes to the ground, it's not like Silva's going to submit him. If any, like, I thought it's Silva's fight to lose, but he might get caught with something, and that's pretty much what happened. He went up against the cage, he got hit with those big bombs. It was actually a similar performance to Bigfoot Silva against Alistair Overeem, where the first round he got dominated, he ended up on the bottom, and then I don't know whether they finished that in the second round or the third, but yeah, Bigfoot basically came back, pinned him against the cage, and then teed off on him. It was a horrible position to be in for Soa. It looked like Bigfoot was literally just holding him there with one hand and then just went to work. A lot of the knees, they didn't actually get through, but it was that one uppercut that went through, that incognito uppercut, just smashed Soa in the face, and that was pretty much it. Honestly, it didn't surprise me. I thought that if Soa can't get it to the ground, he may be in trouble on the feet.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed with Soa, to be honest with you. I mean, when he had him on the ground, I thought, all right, here we go. Smash him his face and take advantage of the situation. But in the second round, he just looked so gassed to me. I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know how in shape can you get when you're that big, when you're a heavyweight. Is there a ceiling on it? Because you and me, Cass, we're not heavyweights. We don't know. To us, we can go to a gym. We can hit the cardio. We can get pretty much any level that we need to be with a lot of hard work. And I know he was working hard, but I just wonder how much cardio can his body have? Because if it's possible for him to be in better shape, I'd really like to see it. In that second round, he looked exhausted. And when he was in that position, he wasn't getting out, partly because of Bigfoot, but partly because he was just so really tired. And it was disappointing to see Soa miss out on an opportunity beating Bigfoot Silva, because he's not one of the last hopes for sort of Aussie fighters in the UFC, but it would have been great to have another sort of name in the upper echelon of the heavyweight division. So it's pretty much to see. I think Bigfoot Silva honestly looked a little bit better in this fight than his last fight. Maybe his body's sort of getting used to being off TRT a little bit more, or maybe he was just had a fire lit under his ass because he knew if he was going to lose this one, that was all over for him. It looked a little bit better, but honestly, yeah, I don't know how many more people he'll beat. I don't know who he's going to get put up against next, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they'll use him.
The other reason why I'm not that surprised is because this was by far Soa's toughest opponent to date. I mean, before that, it's one thing to, knock out guys like Nikita Krylov and Pat Barry and, Juan Potts, who I don't think is in the UFC anymore. He got out-wrestled by Jared Rosha, and then he beat Walt Harris. Those guys were all... I'm pretty sure he was the favorite in pretty much all those fights.
Walt Harris gave him a tough fight.
Yeah.
Like, there was a point of that fight where I thought Soa was going to lose. He came back near the end there, but Walt looked all right, and he's not exactly a world beater.
Soa's definitely got knockout power, but it's just... It's almost deceiving, because sometimes when I see him ground and pounding, I'm like, wow, it doesn't even look that fast. And on the feet, he's not that fast. If he had speed, and if he had better speed and better cardio, he'd probably be a really big force at heavyweight. But those are the two things that he needs to basically work on. He didn't look that comfortable on the feet in this fight. He had a good jab, I'll give him that. But other than that, he didn't look that comfortable.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it is to do with how he was feeling, or how much of it was to do with the fact that he was fighting in Brazil. No doubt also a tough experience for a guy like him. Not sure, but still a commodity because he's an Australian fighter and a heavyweight, but it was disappointing to see him miss out on this opportunity. What about the next heavyweight fight, Cass? Stefan Struve versus Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. I mean, Stefan Struve, a guy with big issues in terms of health issues. He had some problems with anxiety as well before his fights. And Big Nog, obviously, sort of near the tail end of his career. What were you imagining in this fight? Did you think Stefan was going to win it?
I thought this was a pick 'em fight. You've got Big Nog, whose chin and physically he's just in general deteriorated a lot. And then you've got Stefan Struve, who has, the issues more on the mental side. And he said after the fight that he vomited like 3 times in the back, and he wasn't feeling good. He was like feeling faint. So I don't know whether that's a case of, again, the mental issues coming back and like the anxiety, and being nervous, or whether it was like food poisoning. I don't know, but I mean that's not a good look. I just thought, and Stefan Struve's a guy who gets hit a lot. Nog has knockout power. He gets hit a lot as well. I just thought someone's going to knock someone out. Honestly, I don't like watching Big Nog fight anymore. I don't enjoy it. He takes a long time to get into gear. The first round is usually him taking a whole bunch of punishment. He just, and I mean this in the most respectful way. I mean, you know, I've looked up to Nogueira for so many years, and I seriously have so much respect for him. He has nothing to prove. He needs to retire. I don't enjoy watching his fights anymore. When he had Struve up against the cage, the knees that he was throwing were comically slow. And normally, Nogueira is pretty good in the cage. He's actually evolved. He can throw good elbows when he's got his opponent up against the cage. Didn't see much offense from him. It looked like he was just trying to hold Stefan Struve against the cage. Again, and Stefan Struve, I mean, he got the win, but he wasn't really that impressive. I can't wait for the day that Stefan Struve really uses his reach. I mean, his reach fluctuates so much. My girlfriend was like, so what, is his reach longer than John Jones? I'm like, who knows? Over the last few years, it's fluctuated so much. I think Tim Sylvia has had the longest reach. I think at one point it was like 86 inches. But then you look at the next fight, it's like 84.5 inches. Again, Stefan Struve's fluctuated. But anyway, I digress. I can't wait for the day that he uses that reach and he stops his opponents from getting in on him. Even Nogueira, you know, who just isn't fast anymore. He was able to get in on Struve and tag him over and over again. And it just felt like every time Nogueira got hit, especially in the first round, he got rocked. I don't want to see that anymore. To me, it's like a ticking time bomb. When is it going to be too much? And he also said before this fight that he wants to fight Frank Mir again. I don't want to see that fight. Look at Frank Mir. That guy is almost having a career resurgence. I mean, he's going out there aggressive, swinging, throwing bombs, knocking people out. I don't want to see him against Nogueira. I think this third fight, it's like how much do you not like a guy? What else do you want to do to Nogueira? I think Frank Mir would destroy him. What about you? What did you think of the fight?
Yeah, I thought it was a terrible fight. It was tough to watch, and you know, with all due respect, I think two Nogueiras on one card is a bit too much for me. I think maybe they need to be separated. It was just a bit difficult to watch. And look, I agree with everything that you said. Stefan Struve won, but what did he really prove? He didn't look very good. The only thing I hope is now mentally he knows he can get in there and fight, and hopefully that helps him in his next fight to show us what he can do. But I just want to say, you know, Stefan, for a long time, people were saying, look, this guy, when he picks it up, he's going to use his reach. I'm getting to the point now where I'm starting to think maybe this guy will never utilize his reach. Maybe he'll never get it. You know, some guys just can't. It's not his fault. It's not his trainer's fault. You know, sometimes some guys get it and some guys don't. And unfortunately, his height and his reach has done more against his MMA career than for it, because guys just coming in, loading in with that overhand right and knocking him out. So very interested to see what happens with him next. But nevertheless, that third Frank Mir fight would be a terrible, terrible mistake. I hope they never make it either.
Not only because I'm not interested, but the other thing about Nogueira, like he's unranked at the moment, but you look at the guys in the top 15, and I don't see how I think this is a fight that Stefan Struve really should have won. And I think in a way he kind of dropped the ball. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it was mental. You know, he said he wasn't feeling well. I think he should have beaten Nogueira. And to be fair, Nogueira's head movement, it did improve as the fight went on. But I don't want to see people going out in the first round knowing, well, you know, the first round's there to get him. Like, if he continues fighting Big Nog, I think there's going to be a lot of first-round stoppages, and he's going to be in the losing end. You look at the top 15, Stefan Struve was 15. You get in deeper, and it gets even worse. Look at 13, Matt Mitrione. He'd have a field day. Bigfoot Silva, they would never fight the teammates. I don't ever want to see him fight Roy Nelson again. I don't want to see him fight Frank Mir. Could you imagine him and Overeem, Mark Hunt, Rothwell, Barnett, Travis Brown, Arlovsky, Stipe Jr., and Cain Velasquez, and then you got Verdum. I don't want to see Nogueira fighting any of those guys. And if he can't get a win in the top 15, I think he needs to retire. He's done.
Yeah,
and I
certainly.
say that with the most respect.
Yeah, certainly. And the other thing is, you know, the whole thing, MMA, UFC, it's about entertainment and people wanting to watch you fight. I just don't think there's anybody out there that really wants to see him keep on fighting. I don't really think he's really a draw unless he really fights in Brazil. I don't think internationally people are really clamoring to see him fight. And there's plenty of other things he can do. It's great to see that he was able to invest his money well, so he's not doing it for the money. And I mean, maybe if he wants to join a place like Metamoris or go to ADCC and compete in that, stay competitive, that would be great. But in terms of MMA, it's just unnecessary at this point. And the next person they give him would probably be outside the 15, maybe. I don't know who they'd give him, but it just wouldn't be worth his time, the preparation, and the stuff that he puts his body through. So anyway, Cass, they had the 2 tough finale fights on there. Not really any need for us to talk about it, but just wanted to mention, I really felt like it was a mistake putting it right up there in the main card. A lot of the people that were watching around the world didn't even watch Tough Brazil, sort of sitting there thinking, who are these guys? And to be honest with you, it really dragged the card out, especially them winning, them giving the speeches, the little clips before they came out.
They were massive clips, as if it wasn't long enough, those massive stories about who these people were. Oh,
the Brazilians aren't watching. You know what I mean? I mean, they are watching, but Australians are watching, Americans are watching, Canadians are watching, Russians are watching, Polish people are watching.
I think that's pretty much everyone in the world.
No, that's right. No one knows these people. No one watched this show. No one cares about these people. Here's the key word, cares. You put them up there in the pay-per-view, it's going to create issues in terms of timing, in terms of pacing. And I think this whole thing, man, it made the event drag on so badly. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I think it was a big mistake. I understand you want to put it on a Brazilian event, but maybe some thinking needed to be done, maybe some kind of fight night in Brazil. Maybe they could just create some kind of small event with like a TV audience. I don't know. Something like that.
I think their hands were tied because obviously they were supposed to be on UFC Hollywood originally. And then,
and that was originally supposed to be in Brazil and then moved to Hollywood, but not Hollywood, LA. And then it was like issues.
Yeah, it was like musical chairs. There's so much switching, but that was supposed to be on that card. And then they couldn't, I believe it was visa issues. So they decided we're going to stick him on here. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, what do? You can't really put him on the prelims because it's like the Ultimate Fighter winners. It's the finales. You got to give him a bit of a better send-off than that. But then it's like, really, like right in the middle of the pay-per-view. Like if you had Jessica Aguilar, Gadea, Bigfoot and Soa, Struve and Big Nog, cut to Shogun and Little Nog, and then Ronda Rousey and Correia, like that's not a bad pay-per-view. I still didn't think this was that bad a pay-per-view, like going into it. Looking at the prelims and looking at the main card, minus the 2 tough finales, I was like, there's enough names here to keep me interested. But yeah, the tough finales, they were like a big handbrake. And in saying that, Vieira and Lopez, that was a fun fight. I really enjoyed that fight. Franco and Bruno, not so much. That wasn't a great fight by any means. Vieira and Lopez, that part at the end, I don't know whether it was the end of the second or the third round, where like, I think Vieira was on top and Lopez was on the bottom, punching from the bottom. They were both punching each other like Rock'em Sock'em robots, but on the ground. It was insane. It was like synchronized swimming, but like with blood. So much more blood, plus punches in the face. I actually enjoyed that fight.
Plus millions of guillotines.
Yeah.
Flying back and forth. I'm going to guillotine you, and then you're going to guillotine me. Then I'm going to guillotine you again. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, if I was in the UFC shoes, I would have created a separate TV special, Tough Brazil finale, put it on Brazilian TV, get like a TV audience, something like that, set it up like that, or create something like that. But I guess the hands were tied, like you said. But definitely too many toughs.
Or maybe
too many Ultimate Fighters in my book. I can't stand it. This guy's a Brazilian Ultimate Fighter. This guy's an Australian Ultimate Fighter. This guy's a UK Ultimate Fighter. This guy's an actual Ultimate Fighter. All of a sudden, it's like this Ultimate Fighter's fighting this Ultimate Fighter. It's lost its meaning a long time ago, but now it's becoming a bit ridiculous in my book, I reckon.
They should extend the name. They need it. The marketing team. They need the help of the Submission Radio marketing team. Don't call it the Ultimate Fighter anymore. I'm not about
fighter.
The fighter. Yeah. We'll be back on The Current Fighter. They should call it like The Current Fighter who won a tournament of 8 people and then have it on a belt.
Yeah, call him like, look, he's not the Ultimate Fighter, but he's pretty good fighter. Yeah,
and he's a good bloke. And he's nice.
It's gonna be there's gonna be a point where they're gonna have like an Australian, an American, a Canadian, blah blah, blah, and then it's like now it's gonna be World Ultimate Fighter, where all the countries' Ultimate Fighters verse each other.
Well, that's what Dana White wanted to do a long time ago. I don't think anyone cares anymore.
No one cares. It's just ridiculous now.
Every season they try and make it fresh. Live, that was a horrible failed experiment. They try and put fancy coaches. There was like tough 20 that not that many people watched. I can't even remember the previous one, but now they've got Conor McGregor on there, so they think people are going to watch. I don't know, man.
I'll tell you what, I love this gym format. Maybe they should do more
the gym
of that.
versus gym?
Yeah, at least that was like, all right, that makes sense. The only part that didn't make sense to me with that gym versus gym was like they got paid out a bunch of money, but it wasn't allocated. It wasn't like, all right, this guy's going to get this much money and that guy's going to get that much money.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the money, and then you decide what you want to do with the money. And it's like, well, I'm going to keep the money.
Dan Lambert's just like, yoink, I'll take that. What happened to the money, Dan? He's like, what money? Kicks a suitcase behind him.
I love it. I love it. It's like, and media kept asking, what's going on with the money? Where's the money? Who's getting the money? It was like a huge conspircy. We don't know. Glenn Robinson's a really generous guy. Okay, so who got paid what? But anyway, it doesn't matter. I think that was a big success. This Conor McGregor Uriah Faber thing, I mean, you and me never really spoke about it, and there's no really need to speak about it now. We'll speak about it later, but yeah, you mentioned that.
We won't speak about it later.
Yeah, we'll never speak about it.
It's going to get ratings for like the first 3 episodes. Unless they film the altercation and it's like a Vanderlei Chael Sonnen thing where they can tease it, and hopefully it's like in episode 9 so they can get everybody watching the first few episodes. The ratings are gonna tank, in my opinion. I think people have had too much of Conor McGregor.
Too much Conor McGregor. What are you guys doing? It's too much Conor McGregor. You're gonna make everybody. You're gonna take all the mystique away from him. You're gonna everybody's gonna like Brock Lesnar. That was a terrible mistake having Brock Lesnar as a coach. Now Conor McGregor's great in a heated situation, but as a coach, he's gonna be very much like a Brock Lesnar. He's gonna be nice to everyone. He's going to be a great guy. And people don't pay to see Conor McGregor be a great guy. People pay money to see Conor McGregor trash talk and do his Conor McGregor-y things. And, the suits, the high lifestyle, that's more of an act. That's not the way he lives. He's not a multi-billionaire. Well, he wasn't a multi-billionaire when he first got into the UFC. You don't want to lift the curtain on that and see him walking around in his, shorts and T-shirt all the time.
There's no way he'll do that. And I think that is how he lives his life. I mean, I don't know. Interesting thing, really quick side note, and then we're going to get back to actually talking about the fights. 50 Cent was in a lawsuit against a woman, right? And the judge, I think she was suing for like $1 million. I think it was like, he recorded having sex or something like that. And she was suing for like $1 million, and the judge is like, basically going to pay the $1 million. And he's like, look, I actually don't have very much money. I have like $500,000, and most of the stuff that I buy, I return. It's a big story. 50 Cent, all those chains, cars, he returns it. I think with Conor McGregor, he's bought all this stuff and that's the way he lives. But I just think it's one thing to see him do interviews here and there, but really 13 or 12 weeks of Conor McGregor on your screens, I think people will get over it. You know what I mean? It's a shtick. I'm not saying it's fake, but people are just going to be like, oh God, I'm so sick of the same thing.
Oh no, for sure. I'm just worried about what people are going to do when they see a side of Conor McGregor where he's just a nice guy helping out his teammates, because that's not the stuff that sells pay-per-views. And the only guy that was able to pull it off, in my opinion, was Chael Sonnen, because he was equally awesome guy, and he gave lots of really good talks to his team and stuff. So at the same time, that was pretty good. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, moving on to the card, Shogun Rua versus Little Nog. I thought Shogun...
Just one more thing before we get to that card. You know what I would have liked to see with the Ultimate Fighter finale? If they did the Meta Morris thing and then just did it in a little studio with a few chairs and the family watches, and then they text us the results. Vieira won.
Yeah, well,
I think that would have been good.
I'll tell you what.
Think about.
I mean, that's a good joke, but I reckon they could have done a little TV special to do this thing for Brazil, get big ratings because Brazil's going to love it, and stop people from complaining all the time. Yeah, but anyway, we're a bunch of complainers. It's MMA. I mean, what do they expect? Anyway, Shogun Rua versus Little Nog. I thought Shogun was going to win this fight. The fight, I was really impressed with Little Nog in this fight. He had some good moments. There was a point where I thought he was going to beat Shogun, knock him out. I was impressed with Shogun's heart in this fight, but overall, I just don't know how many fights both guys have left. What did you think of the whole thing?
The first fight between them was a really iconic fight. It's going into that Grand Prix, Little Nog was the favorite. Mauricio Shogun Rua pulled the upset. And at the time, it was a real display of very, very high level MMA. It was a really big deal. And now it's two guys that are far from relevant, and both guys' careers are really, really close to being over. I thought at the very least we'll get a finer fight. We did, especially for the first round. After the first round, though, it cooled off a little bit. In the first fight, you know, both guys got dropped multiple times. It was exciting as shit. And I think it went for like, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes, something like that. You know, the crazy pride rounds. My biggest thing about this fight, the thing I've noticed, and sort of not so much that I noticed it in this fight, but it was a confirmation, is that Shogun's chin is all but gone. He's reached that level. And I remember, like, around that first Dan Henderson fight, I was like, man, it's going to happen. It's going to happen any fight now. Shogun's going to lose his chin. I mean, you know, he's getting knocked out. He's getting dropped by Little Nog, who technically has good boxing, but he just never has really been able to put it together that well in MMA. He's adapted his game. He's got a pretty decent sprawl. He's got pretty good takedown defense. And Shogun's become more of a sort of wrestler guy, but Little Nog isn't exactly a knockout machine. And I kind of think a lot of people sort of were sleeping on Little. I thought this was a pick 'em fight. I gave Shogun the advantage only by a little bit. I think when you get brutally knocked out by Anthony Rumble Johnson, people are like, oh, well, this guy's shit. And they had that thing where it's like, oh, 67% fans were betting or whatever, predicting and texting us that Shogun's going to win. It's like, yeah, because they didn't know who the other guy was. Most casual fans, most people who watch now, they don't even know who Little Nog is. But, you know, he's not exactly a knockout machine. I thought, look, Shogun's chin will hold up, and it just did. It just got him across the finish line. And he uses wrestling. It was a very similar fight to their first one. Shogun won because of his wrestling, because of his top control. And, yeah, that's pretty much what got him across the finish line. It just wasn't as epic as the first one.
Well, there you go. Post-fight press conference, Shogun accepted Rampage Jackson's fight through Instagram. Told Dana White he accepts it. So looking like it's going to be Shogun versus Rampage. Just quickly, are you interested in watching that fight, Cass, Shogun versus Rampage?
Yeah, because I think they're at similar points in their career. It's a fight that I wouldn't have minded seeing a little while back, because I know Rampage has wanted that fight for a long time, for years. I wish that fight got made like maybe 3-4 years ago, but I'm okay with it. That's fine. And we spoke about this last time when we were talking about Rampage and like who do you put him up against. I think him and Shogun, I believe Shogun's ranked number 8, Rampage is number 9. It's a perfect fight.
I'm happy with it as well. And, you know, just on a side note, still interested in seeing Little Nog fight a lot more than Big Nog. Still think Little Nog maybe has 1 or 2 fights left in him. He's still a little bit dangerous and he's a little bit more exciting to watch than Big Nog. So I think if one of them retires first, I'd rather it be Big Nog than Little Nog.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Little Nog didn't look horrible. The weird thing is they both, like Big Nog has been through massive wars in his career. Little Nog, not so much. And yet they've both deteriorated, like almost at the same time.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if it wasn't for this main event cast, Ronda Rousey versus Bethe Correia, the event, I don't know if it would have really gone off with many fans. If you didn't have Ronda Rousey really saved this card, in my opinion. This main event fight really made it worth watching, especially to a lot of these casual fans who don't really watch MMA very often. Going into this Ronda Rousey fight, were you expecting a quick finish, or did you think this thing was going to take some time?
I gave Bethe no chance whatsoever. And again, I mean that in the most respectful way. I just, like, looking back at some of her fights, you know, the UFC was really billing this as like this, oh, Bethe has this crazy knockout power. No, she doesn't. It took her so long to beat Shayna Baszler, and Shayna beat her in the first round. It's like she wore Shayna Baszler down with a storm of punches, and then against Jessamyn Duke, I mean, she took Jessamyn to a decision, and Jessamyn, she still is in the UFC for now. She probably won't be soon. And then Julie Kedzie, a lot of people think Julie Kedzie beat her. And, you know, Julie Kedzie is completely done. I didn't give her any chance. You know, when someone like Shayna Baszler takes you and bullies you against the cage, I thought Ronda Rousey's going to have an absolute field day with her. It's pretty much what happened. What about you? Going into this fight, what did you think?
Yeah, no chance. Disappointing performance from her. You know, rewatched the finish of the fight quite a few times, and not really that many punches landed. Really had a tough time seeing the punch that really knocked her down and knocked her out.
Oh, who, Bethe?
Yeah.
Well, Bethe sort of went across the cage and she left her whole side exposed. Ronda hit her with a right hand to the temple. That's the one. It's like a right hand and then a jab to the jaw. So it was just like boom, boom, and that's all she wrote. She was like the old man in The Simpsons. Down I go.
Yeah, it wasn't very impressive at all. I think there was a body shot in there somewhere. It's possibly
against
like
the cage, yeah.
Yeah, like a knee or something.
Sorry, yes, and that's what started it.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think that was probably one of the more significant shots. Maybe that stunned her.
Like against Sarah McMahon, because you could see Betch holding her side, and that's when she sort of went into retreat, and then and her hands were down. Ronda Rousey hit her, boom, boom, 1-2, and then down she went. But I will say, Ronda Rousey's striking, much has been made of it. I wasn't nearly as impressed with her striking or technique as her knockout power. I was impressed with the knockout power. I mean, she's definitely evolved, but man, she was brawling in that fight. Anyone who watches that fight and says, "Oh my God, the beautiful technique that she displayed," it was like she was brawling in combinations. She was off balance for a lot of that fight. If there's a really disciplined striker out there, and I don't really think there is one in that division, who will hang back, let Ronda Rousey overextend herself, and catch her on the chin, I mean, she's going to be in a world of trouble.
Nah, agreed. A lot of personal feelings in this fight. Now, post-fight, Betch said that she was happy with the way things played out. She seemed happy. She wasn't depressed at all. Even after the fight, she wasn't too upset. I don't know. I didn't like that. I felt like she didn't put in a good performance whatsoever. And I feel like somebody in her position should be not upset, but at least, not laughing and smiling and just being happy with it all. I'd be disappointed if I was her with my performance because she looked, in my opinion, terrible out there.
She was like, and I don't know if we've said it on the show, but just the people we've been chatting about it, like, we discussed it with Dan Kelly when we were filming the techniques in the gym, and we were sort of like, she was there by default. Betch was only the contender because, I mean, there really wasn't anyone else at the time, and still isn't, other than Miesha Tate, again, by default. I mean, if you look at her record, again, like we've said before, her wins weren't like crazy impressive. She was just right person, right time, and she worked for that matchup, honestly, with all the trash talking she did, the whole, 4 horsewomen thing and all that kind of stuff. And speaking of the 4 horsewomen, did you see what Shayna Baszler said after that fight?
No, what did she say?
It's from Shayna Baszler, all right? "Yes, you fucking bitch. Fuck you. Now come back and let Jessamine Duke and myself get our redemption. Don't fuck with the family. Hashtag 4 horsewomen. Hashtag UFC 190.
Shayna Baszler.
I was like,
trying to get her foot back in the door.
I was like, it's over. It's done. I was like,
why does she think people want to see that fight? We don't want to see that fight. Sorry, Shayna.
No.
I'd like to see you get a couple of wins outside the UFC, maybe, at least. Show us what you could do.
Well, at this point, she would have to. I don't think we'll see Shayna Baszler back in the UFC. But yeah, I was just like, wow, like, don't fuck with the family. It's not about fucking with the family. It's just don't fuck with Ronda Rousey. As we've seen evidence, you can fuck with the family all you want. Just, don't fuck with Ronda Rousey. So honestly, all the horsewomen have been doing really bad. Marina Shafir, she's been getting knocked out a lot. And kudos to her. She's saying how she's not going to give up and she's going to keep trying. Good. Jessamine Duke, she's had a rough run. And Shayna Baszler, she just got kicked out of the UFC. I mean, the family is being held by one piece of super glue, and that's Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, I bet so. Well, yeah. And not really like the real 4 horsemen. No real Arn Andersons or Tully Blanchards or Ollie Andersons there, but that's
You got Ric Flair, though. You got Ric Flair and you got Ronda Rousey.
That's right.
That much you can say.
Might be like the new 4 horsemen they had, like with no, not really, because Chris Benoit was pretty good. All right, well, Cass, I mean, yeah, it was a big event. We are running out of time. She dedicated her performance to Roddy Piper. He was a guy that had a big influence on you and me in our broadcasting careers, in our personal lives. Just a great guy. And for everybody who doesn't really know pro wrestling, he was actually the guy that made WrestleMania 1 possible. So he was a big part of making WWE what it is today. He was actually the bad guy that versed Hulk Hogan and made Hulk Hogan look like a huge star. A guy that doesn't really get spoken about much, but a lot of roots in MMA. Trained by Judo Gene LaBelle. A lot of interactions with Muhammad Ali. Once Muhammad Ali let him hip toss him when he was a kid to put him over him. And he was just a spectacular guy, just a fantastic guy in the sport, and influenced a lot of MMA guys like Chael Sonnen, guys like obviously Ronda Rousey, and a lot of others. It was just a real shame to see him pass away at such a young age, and it was tough for us to see. So, Cass, me and Cass wanted to dedicate this episode to Piper and his family, and may you rest in peace.
Absolutely. And seeing him doing interviews like literally days prior with like TMZ and seeing him speaking and stuff like that and then being gone a few days later, really sad stuff. So definitely agree with you. We're definitely dedicating this episode to Rowdy Roddy Piper and his family. Our thoughts are definitely with them. Just want to say a big thank you to our guests, guys. I know it's been a fair long episode. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening. Big thank you to our guests TJ Dillashaw, Alex Chambers, the always wonderful Coach Wink, and of course Jake Shields, a very last-minute entry. Really appreciate his time. We can understand, him being super frustrated with the way the fight turned out, but still took a few seconds to speak with us. Before we pull the plug on this episode, any last words for the fans, Dennis?
Yeah, guys, go check out Mission Impossible, the new Mission Impossible. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 93%.
Wow, no spoilers. I haven't seen it yet.
And I'll tell you guys something. It lives up to the hype. A fantastic movie. And Tom Cruise, really one of the last sort of action stars from back in the day. Arnie sort of losing the crown a little bit with the new Terminator movies not being that great. So check it out. Tom Cruise, no matter what you guys think about him in terms of what he's done, putting out spectacular movies lately. A lot of really good movies. So this is just another one to add to the list.
Edge of Tomorrow, Jack Reacher, and now Mission. I love Tom Cruise's movies. Weird dude from what I've seen, but I love his movies. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to give us a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, all that kind of stuff. We will be back next week.